my money back for buying three of these. Don't buy another flashlight until you've seen what this new network can do. This U.S. Army engineer bringing military technology to the public, and he's destroyed the $300 billion flashlight industry in the process. His invention is 20 times more powerful than a traditional headlight, while being ultra lightweight and energy efficient. It keeps everyone safe outside the dark. Here's how the story began a few months ago. Robert Snipes is a 50-year-old Army engineer at Marathon Run. He goes for a run 3 times a week.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Scared and Interested. In this video, we're going to examine 3 of the worst disasters in history. Frustrating, 2 of these seem to be entirely preventable based on a series of mistakes made by people involved. Then, in contrast, the third story required a once-in-a-lifetime natural event to occur and blood to transpire. But either way, in each of them, deaths will be place. As always, discretion is advised. By the early 1900s, trains moving passengers ran across parts of the Pacific Northwest and had been ultimately passing just a few years before. Rail transportation had become relatively safe and efficient, but collisions, derailments, and other accidents were quickly heard of. This was especially true in mountainous areas known for steep grades and rugged terrain and harsh winters. Conditions like these are expected when it was, but in early 1910, the winter storm was literally proportional, resulting in one of the worst disasters in U.S. history. Wellington, Washington was a small, unincorporated town about 80 miles east of Seattle that was founded in 1890 as a depot for the Great Northern Railway. Despite its small size, Wellington had a hotel, dentist, post office, a supermarket, and a modest hospital. Wellington also sits at about 4,000 above sea level, which is regularly hit by spring rains and harsh weather. But despite this, it is actually one of the only passable routes through that area of the Cascade Mountains. In the mid-1890s, the Great Northern Railway hired well-known engineer John Frank Stevens to determine what would make a super railway. Stevens concluded that it was possible, and this meant that at least one tunnel would be 40 miles from its Windigo. Construction of this first tunnel began in the summer of 1897 and was completed a few days before Christmas in the year 1900. Upon its completion, it was 8 miles long, 18 feet wide, and 25 feet high through solid rock underneath the mountain. From then on, the passage through the Cascades would be drastically easier than fuel during westward expansion. A decade later, on February 20, 1910, the area was being hit by a massive winter storm. But you know anything about the area, you know blizzards are frequent occurrences in the Cascade Mountains, but this was unlike anything most residents had ever seen. Some witnesses claimed that almost a foot of snow fell every hour for 2 days straight, and then nearly 18 feet of humidity in Wellington by the 23rd. And this wasn't soft, light powder, it was a thick and heavy mix of snow and ice that locals and railroad employees referred to as Cascade Cement. Now, even though this was a particularly bad snow, the railroad crews were quite prepared for lots of snow. They had massive rotary snow plows fixed on powerful locomotives. These giant plows, which had one capable of clearing the deepest banks and shooting the snow hundreds of feet away from the tracks, almost like a giant snow globe. But during the storm of 1910, the snow was filled with rocks, trees, and other debris that slid onto the tracks that made the loading was ready to cope with. However, the tracks east of Wellington were still open on the morning of the 23rd as 2 trains made their way from Spokane to Seattle. The first was a passenger train, and the second was a fast mail train. Both trains passed the Cascade Tunnel without incident, and then after emerging from the west side, the conductors don't have to stop in Wellington because the tracks mounted past the headland were totally impassable. The passengers were particularly surprised at the news, considering the flight they'd already come through, and nobody was looking forward to a long flight, but at least they were stopped in a town of some featureless stretch of track in the middle of nowhere. But even though they were in Wellington, because the average risk was so high, dispatchers considered parking both trains in the Cascade Tunnel. This would have protected them from the weather, but the idea was actually decided against because the train's idle coal-fired boilers would have filled the tunnel's cables in a matter of minutes. Instead, the trains entered Wellington and set their parking brakes between Windy Mountain on one side and Tigray on the other. Then, probably more than 100 passengers and crew were staying on the trains. This is because the hotel in town regarded both travelers generally assuming they would have received that journey in a day or two like what they usually do. But then by the 26th, so 3 days later, the storm shut down was set up like up, and all communications logs that afternoon, telegraph lines finally went down. By then, the passengers had basically no choice but to sit, read, navigate, or steer over the storm. Several days later, the 29th, the temperature began rising and the snow tapered off noticeably. Unfortunately, this would for short-lived. In just a few hours, the snow was replaced by rain, intense winds, lightning, and then thunder that shook the canyons around Wellington. By the morning of March 1st, the increasingly weary passengers strengthened more than a week when they heard a huge thunderclap. At that moment, the great northern employees, Charles Andrew, walking to one of the company bunkhouses not too far from the hotel, and like everyone else, was startled by how loud it was. Then, when he instinctively looked up toward the mountain, he witnessed what he would later describe as white death. A massive, continuous sheet of ice and snow more than 10 feet high, a quarter mile deep and half mile long, broke free from the mountain and began sliding toward Wellington. As it accelerated, Charles said it shook the earth and sounded like a runaway train gathering speed along the descent. Even more horrifying, mixed in with the roar of the avalanche, you could hear the sound of the shearing rock, snapping trees, and eventually twisting steel as the massive snow slammed into the parked trains. Thankfully, the runs of the avalanche missed the hotel, and the two trains were immediately ripped off the tracks and carried nearly 100 feet down the road into Tie Creek into a wait place. Inside, the passengers and employees were thrown through the air with a few injected open windows on the way down. When the train would come to a stop, by the time the clouds were cleared, many of the train cars were covered by as much as 40 feet of snow. Almost immediately, people from the town and railroad employees rushed down to the curtain to see if anyone had survived. First, they had to actually clear passages through the snow to reach the first of their trains. They would then spend the next 3 hours directly on secondary avalanches rescuing as many people as they could. But in the end, only 23 passengers were still alive to be rescued. Because telegraph lines were still down, they had no way of requesting help from any other city. Eventually, a hotel guest volunteered to walk to town to see him, almost 7 miles away, to deliver the message in person. Once they had gone, they first spare rotary snow was sent to him, but then its 20 crew members were also killed when it was derailed by an avalanche along the way. Then, sadly, another 63 Canadian railroad employees were killed just 3 days later during a similar incident in Rogers Pass, British Columbia, about 435 miles from the north. In the end, the avalanche had resulted in the loss of 96 people, 35 passengers, and 61 railroad employees. Once the weather had cleared, the railroad survivors were eventually sent to nearby Wenatchee, and by then, the tragedy from the front page was all the way to West Canada. In the days following the incident, dozens of people from Newton were strapped to toboggans and hauled between narrow cases to trains and eventually transported to the nearby cities of Everett and Seattle. After the avalanche, no train would cross Stevens Pass until the snow was removed and the tracks were repaired more than 3 weeks later. Due to the exceptionally bad weather, the last few days were recovered until July, 5 months after the incident. The winter of 1910 was one of the worst in Washington's history, but the sheer volume of snow wasn't the sole cause of the avalanches. The conditions became even more dangerous when the temperature rose and the snow turned to rain. This added tons of weight to the huge mass of ice and snow that had already accumulated. Another big factor was that many of the mountain slopes were near treeless because they were made by forest fires and clear-cut by forestry companies over the previous summers. This created relatively smooth and obstruction-free surfaces in already avalanche-prone areas. When the incidents occurred as well, thunder was often cited as a major contributor to the avalanche. But these days, experts disagree whether thunder alone can trigger an avalanche. But either way, from several first-hand accounts, it is clear there was a huge thunderstorm just before the avalanche began. Several months later, in October of the same year, the Great Northern Railway began a multi-year project building dozens of concrete snow sheds on particularly susceptible portions of track between Wellington and Seaton. Later that month, the company changed the town's name from Wellington to Tie in an effort to distance itself from the incident. However, there was another incident just 6 years later, in late January of 1916. This time, 8 Great Northern passengers were capable of traveling when another windy gust avalanche pushed the train off the tracks down to 100-foot ravine. Eventually, the town of Tie was abandoned in 1929 when a second Cascade tunnel and deep passenger tunnel became operational. These days, it's a popular attraction for local hikers and history enthusiasts, and one of the original snow sheds still sits abandoned to this day.
Chevy makes affordable vehicles that help you enjoy life. Enjoy endless possibilities and your new Chevy. Chevrolet, together let's drive.
Came to Conrad Hanneman family land, and if you cross my path, we don't ask, we take. When someone forgets their face, I ain't gonna man for that.
the fuck was that?
On the afternoon of Saturday, September 22nd, 1934, Wrexham AFC was scheduled to play their Welsh rivals, the Tranmere Rovers. Wrexham AFC's soccer team, and the oldest team in Wales, the third oldest professional soccer club in the world, and this match against the Tranmere Rovers was an important event for Wrexham. Despite them playing on the lower leagues of the English soccer system, it didn't stop them from having a large and loyal fan base in their hometown. Watching them play at home at the racecourse ground didn't be a religious experience for people in Wrexham. But when they were up against another Welsh team, every man in town wanted to be watching and cheering the team on. The problem was that Wrexham was a mining town. More than a quarter of the men who lived in the town worked at the Cresford Collier, and many more worked in other mines or in shops and businesses that relied on the poor miners. In addition, miners at the time worked in shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that meant paying them to be underground when the game was being played. So they came for the workaround. If everyone who was supposed to be working on Saturday worked the night shift on Friday, they could get their hours in and not miss the game. So as the night shift started on Friday the 21st, 500 men went down at the end at once, which was many more than usual. Then, more than half headed to a parking lot with no tenants. There were two main shafts at the Cresford mine. One was named Martin, and the other was named Dennis. The Dennis shaft was 2,264 feet, or 609 meters deep, and it was split into different areas or districts. Some of these accessed the main coal seam, and the others mined coal from separate veins and options. Of the two shafts, Dennis was the least popular with miners for several reasons, with the main one being the air quality. The coal in some parts of Dennis was very dry and produced a lot of gases. In fact, the mining company pumped some of it out to be used as a household gas in town. In addition, the ventilation that was in place didn't quite do the job for moving over here, so breathing would be difficult and it get far too hot in some areas. By 1934, measures were supposed to be taken right at different points of the mine, but unfortunately, not everywhere was correct measured. Gas would build up in the areas and expected to be missed. And beyond just the air quality, there were some other issues too. Usually there was only one way in and out of each district. By law, there were supposed to be two, so the workers could get out and the other was not blocked. The support beams put in too short were also never as straight as they should have been. However, at the time, miners were in no place to argue, so for the most part, they simply kept their heads down and got to work. That is, until the morning before the full match. Some workers had noticed the weird smell for a couple of days before the two burst. Weirdly, it wasn't the usual smell of gas. It was more like a dead mouse, or as one of the miners described it, as if someone had their pants down. There had also been a bit of spontaneous smoke, but that often happened when coal dust was getting around so they ignored it. Either way, by then, it was only a matter of time. At 2 a.m. on September 22nd, there was a sudden explosion 2 miles underground in the Dennis shaft. This blast was so big that it ripped the main seam of Dennis and lit the air on fire. This explosion set off detectors in the mine and transmitted pipes below the police. They then sent almost every officer they had. Shortly after that, in addition to them, firefighters, doctors, nurses, and men from the England mines rushed to the scene to see if they could help. The men not in the Dennis shaft got out as fast as they could, and at first people arriving at the scene thought only 111 people were trapped in the ground. Initially, they didn't know whether the soccer match would be larger than average workers. Later, when they counted how many mining claims had been checked out, they realized it was more than at least double that number were stuck. Before long, the roads were made with live cars, and more than 150 volunteers were making their way to each thing they could. The rain was coming down hard that day, and it didn't matter. The mine was the heart of their community. They had to help. As men continued pouring out, the miners' wives stood around the entrance and asked if anyone came out and they'd seen their loved ones. Some were lucky to recognize familiar faces, but many would never see what they were looking for. Shortly after the explosion, the fire service couldn't do anything but stand by and watch. The fires were too hot and too deep for them to reach. Then, finally, 2 hours after the initial explosion, a manager from a nearby call went as far as possible with a small team. There, they found the first bodies of 6 miners who were killed instantly by the explosion and got them to the surface. Then, 30 minutes later, the rescue team began to fight back the flames using extinguishers. 3 hours after that, 18 miners from the nearby group went down and sank into the heat and smoke, but unfortunately, there was a miscommunication. An order to avoid the district was mistaken for an order to enter, and these men were only wearing a basic breathing apparatus. They were, however, carrying a canary in a cage to check for carbon monoxide. When this canary died, as soon as they entered the district, the team leader realized there was a problem and ordered everyone to move back. As they did, in the rush, 2 men started to panic, ripping off their nose clips and collapsing. And a third man fell, and finally took his arms and tried to drag him out. Full along, he was also struggling. Another rescue team eventually pulled all 4 out, but unfortunately, the final man survived. By then, it was clear that no one could be alive in that area of the mine, so they focused on another district. But as they continued along, they found there were still fires active in north, making it impossible to mount a rescue. The firefighters went in again to try to extinguish the flame. They struggled with it for another 40 hours. No matter how hard they tried to fight the fires, they just seemed to get larger. Even worse, more explosions were ignited. The main town started to fill with carbon monoxide. So, after rescuing them, everything they could was clear. No one else could survive. In the end, the 11 bodies were recovered from the mine, and 3 of them to a party rescue team. Because of how little progress they made, how dangerous a rescue would be, it was eventually decided they couldn't risk the lives of anyone else. On Monday, the 24th of September, the mine entered was sealed, turning it into a great tomb. By then, the hundreds who turned up their flat in the yard outside the shadow was deserted except for a few police officers. That worker was the last person to lose their life in the aggressor of Colby. The mine was then resealed, the fires continued deep in the tunnels. There was at least one more explosion the days following, but thankfully, no one else was hurt. Several months later, the entrance was finally sealed once again to try to recover the bodies. In the meantime, the owners of the colliery had begged pipe into the part of the mine where the men were trapped so they could check how toxic the air was. The hope was that they could seal the air when the explosion happened, and then, a few months later, when the fires had died down, the air had cleared, they could resume mining the rest of the coal pit after extracting the bodies. By March of 1935, the team went in and created a series of book tours to let more fresh air to the fetish shop. And today, another team reached the gravel mine and missing out on the rescue team. By July, they made it another 700 yards further and made the tunnels close to the entrance safe enough for mining to resume. For months after, they moved slowly to the mine, accessing it from the sea. This time, at every step, they were followed by inspectors who took air samples. In the aftermath, the tragedy had made national news and risen all the way to a parliamentary inquiry. This meant that every step the mine operators took was under intense scrutiny. However, eventually, the inspectors decided it was just too toxic to go any deeper. The bodies of 266 miners remained underground, and the cause of the explosion has never been determined.
Knowledge is put to the test. In every GMC Sierra, get 5.9% APR on GMC Sierra heavy-duty models. That's over $5,300 in average monthly savings.
And your budget. With True Creek, no one makes it easier or more affordable to get a beautiful mine built up.
Located in South Central Rivers, the Arthurvale Colliery reported coal mining producing coal since 1875. Almost 100 years later, demand for coal began dropping in the 1960s. Even then, the mine employed 8,000 miners produced thousands of tons of coal and waste, spoil every day. This spoil was a byproduct of the mining process. As was the case with the all mines, this spoil was deposited in large amounts called tips. When one tip got too big, another one was simply struggled to survive. At the Arthurvale Colliery, Tip 7 began growing in 1958. Just a few years later, it contained hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of spoil in a town within 100 feet of the ground below. No one knows exactly how much it weighed, but it may have been as much as 500,000 tons or 1 million pounds. Now, this wasn't any larger than many tips at other Welsh mines, but crucial was the ones at Arthurvale were positioned on the hillside instead of flat ground. In addition, tip number 7 sat on a forest patch of earth over which there were a number of natural springs. This was prohibited by the National Coal Board's burial regulations, which was ironic considering that the NCB owned and operated the Arthurvale Colliery. But even more surprising, tip number 7 sat directly below the town of Aberdeen, and 2 schools with more than 300 students between them in the valley below. Eventually, the tip grew so large that concerned residents, officials, engineers, and geologists began voicing their concerns to mine executives and NCB officials. During the first 3 weeks of October of 1966, South Central wind was losing nearly 7 inches of rain. This was roughly 11% of what was typically seen annually in just a 3-week span. In addition, the spoil had already filled significant amounts of water in these springs beneath, and by then it was more than twice as heavy as the dry spoil had been. Eventually, this path became so unstable that a large portion of timber segments that approximately 10 feet down the hill and settled toward the city between the evening of October 20th and the morning of the 21st. In addition, a large cyclone that swallowed a bunch of the rail lines and ferried ways from the line to the tip. However, both the movement and sinkhole weren't discovered until approximately 7:30 in the morning of the 21st, when miners began to arrive with their ships. With an impending tragedy on their hands, one worker ran to the office and returned to the supervisor a few minutes later. Because the weather showed no signs of letting go, he decided that no additional wastage would be added to tip number 7 container, and that a new tip would be established as soon as a suitable location was found. By then, the spoil was still relatively solid, and the true gravity of what was about to happen wasn't fully realized. At about 9:15 a.m., a 20-foot high portion tip broke away and began to float, blasts down the slope toward Akron at about 15 miles an hour. To the people in the village that morning, this swallow blackish race of blood sounded like the boat distant thunder passing overhead. The spoil then continued to gather momentum, first like hundreds of yards down the hill, flattening two farmhouses and the people inside its wetlands. Next, it crossed the canal that ran through the village and severed two waterfalls that were buried in the embankment beside some railroad tracks. This then exacerbated the problem by adding millions of gallons of water to the already liquid slurry, and by then, the flowing mass had tons of additional debris like mud, rocks, and trees. As this was happening, hundreds of students in the school below sat quietly at their desks, waiting for their teachers to finish taking attendance. Soon enough, everyone felt the ground shaking, rumbling low. Then, in an instant, the slowly hit the building, breaking right through the doors and shattering windows in a matter of seconds, filling up the classrooms with the thick slurry. As it did, pipes burst, walls buckled, and students screamed as the school was overtaken by the mass. One cafeteria worker saved 5 students by using her own bodies to shield against the rising spoil. In another selfless act, a headmaster tried to give 34 students some protection behind the classroom's portable back. Sadly, everyone in that classroom didn't make it. Within 10 minutes, nearly 24 homes around the school were also left as panic survivors poured into the streets. Police received the first emergency call 10 minutes later at 9:25 a.m. Shortly after, the spoil stopped flowing, and when it did, the whole town went silent, and in some parts of the village, the mountains of spoil were nearly 30 feet tall. Many streets and lanes were totally impassable. This didn't stop villagers or rescuers from descending the schools. About 15 minutes later, dozens of fathers who had been working at the mine began arriving as well. As their experience, they directed the rescue effort early on. Even still, in the early going, everyone dug frantically with their hands and anything else they could find nearby. This digging was unfortunately painstakingly slow. Occasionally, sounds could be heard from somewhere in the slurry. Later, bulldozers and excavators began arriving in the school, but again, the precarious nature of the spoil meant that they had to be used extremely carefully. As the day continued, dozens of students and teachers were recovered, and tragically, many of them didn't survive. The first survivors began arriving at local hospitals at 10 a.m. the day of the accident. The search continued throughout the day and into the next, but no more survivors were found after just 11 a.m. the next morning. In the end, in total, 144 lives were lost, of which 116 of those were students. In a town of only 5,000 people at the time, this was just under 3% of everyone who lived there. In the wake of the tragedy, the Tribune was convened to figure out what exactly happened. The first public meeting was held on November 2nd, 1966. For months afterwards, the site was examined, there was witness testimony, and a thorough investigation to determine the cause of the disaster. The Tribune issued its final report in early August 1967, and it found that the NCB's indifference and inaction were largely responsible for the disaster, that it was entirely preventable, and that it had been caused by ignorance and incompetence instead of willful malice. In fact, during his testimony, the Aberfan MP even admitted that he always had suspicion that the tip would slide, and that if it did, it might reach the village. However, he didn't say anything because he was concerned about the economic impacts if the line was closed. In the end, only 9 NCB employees were censured, and nobody was ever prosecuted. Unsurprisingly, many people thought that the Tribunal line were too lax, considering the devastating nature of the disaster. Several years later, in 1974, construction of the Aberfan Memorial Garden was completed on what was once the ground of the school below the hillside. By then, only 600 miners remained at the Arthur Vale College between competition and worsening economic conditions in finally closed for good in the summer of 1989. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. A series focusing on disasters has been requested for some time, and so I want to make at least one compilation featuring several of the incidents which are too short to take into a full-length video. If this series continues, the goal will be to feature some of the more intricate and complex disasters in history. So let me know if this is something you'd like to see more of, and if there are some particularly fascinating disasters that you think might fit the series. Feel free to submit them to the form in the description. And hopefully, I will see you in the next one.
Vision starts at the top. Opportunity is wide open in the GMC Hummer EV.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Scary Interesting. In this video, we're going to go over two of the absolute worst disasters in history. The final story is a disaster unlike any other you've probably heard of, and this one is also unlike any other on Earth. You'll see what I mean. And as always, viewer discretion is advised. Mount Ruapehu, located in the very center of New Zealand's North Island, is one of the beautiful views you're likely to find anywhere. This is even more impressive than the seemingly endless natural beauty of New Zealand. The mountain is deceptive. Mount Ruapehu is both the tallest mountain of the North Island and the country's most active volcano. About every 50 years since it began to be recorded, volcanic activity increases, which can amount to as little as a few tremors over a few days to as much as a cataclysmic month-long event. In early 1945, Mount Ruapehu began ramping up from one of the eruptions as activity slowly built in March. This caused several lava domes to form on its surface. This is when lava comes out bubbling through vents and forming a large dome. Between the three peaks that form the mountain also sits a large crater filled with water known fittingly as Crater Lake. By July of that year, Crater Lake water levels had fluctuated significantly, and at one point drained almost completely of water to its 1,000 feet over 300 feet of depth. At several points, massive steam eruptions also occurred that were visible from 100 kilometers away, interacting between the water and the hot volcanic material. These eruptions continued for most of the year. By December, volcanic activity started to wane. Soon after, Crater Lake began to return to its normal level as rain and snowmelt came in, with some of the drainage was being plugged up with volcanic material. These blockages are what's known as a tephra dam, and tephra is just another word for all the fragments of rock that were ejected by the eruptions. By 1953, Crater Lake was actually sitting 26 feet or 80 meters higher than it was prior to the 1945 eruption, thanks to the building of tephra around the rim. Unfortunately, what can happen is that these dams, which form sort of at random, are not completely stable. This instability created a precarious situation that went largely unnoticed. At around 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve 1953 that year, volcanic material formed that Crater Lake finally gave way. In an instant, 90 million gallons, or 340,000 cubic meters of water, began rushing into the river below. This river runs down the mountain to the east before taking a 90-degree turn southward, followed by a gradual westward curve that takes it right through the tiny Tanaway. Known as a lahar, this torrent of mud, debris, and volcanic material roared down the mountainside until 10:21 p.m. This is when the sound was interrupted by the first Sweden. 5 hours earlier, just before 3 o'clock, a train station in Wellington, New Zealand was buzzing with activity. Travelers bustled around the platform, searching for their assigned carriages, while a team of station employees loaded up the cargo areas with neatly wrapped presents and stacks of luggage. It was one of the last opportunities for those in Wellington to opt-in by Christmas morning, and the train's passenger cars were sold to capacity. As time ticked closer to its scheduled departure, the KA 949 steam locomotive let off white balloons before the whistle sounded and shouts of all aboard echoed through the platform. The last of the passengers hopped on as the train got off to a creeping start, while those already in their seats waved at the windows to their friends and loved ones. Moments later, the 11-carriage train disappeared on the track on its way to Auckland. The weather had been mostly agreeable across the entire route the days leading up to Christmas Eve, and it didn't appear like that would change at all. The route would have several stops along the way. Close to midway through, the train was scheduled to pass right by Mount Ruapehu via the bridge over the river in Tanaway. At 7 o'clock that evening, the goods train passed through the community without issue, but by a little after 8, Conway was in the midst of the destruction of the horror. Despite the waters pounding the train bridge, it held up without wavering, but sometime between 10:10 and 10:15, a tsunami wave of water, ice, mud, and rocks, 20 feet or 6 meters high, slammed into the concrete pylons. This collision caused a single concrete pylon to break away after having been previous law. Minutes later, the train carried 285 people and 9 passenger cars could be seen approaching Conway, completely unaware of the danger ahead. While driving through the community, a man named Cyril noticed the road in front of him had disappeared and then were replaced by rushing water, forcing him to stop. Suddenly, the light caught his attention, and when he turned, he saw the headlamp of a train that was running full speed toward the damaged bridge. Grabbing his flashlight, Cyril ran out of his car and ran toward the tracks. Once he got near them, he flicked the light on and began waving it wildly, hoping to get the attention of the train driver. The subsequent screech of the train wheel seemed to indicate that the driver noticed the light would even short passenger trains require a fair amount of distance to come to a complete stop. By the time the driver noticed Cyril, it was already far too late. At 10:21 p.m., the locomotive crossed the threshold and fell through the leaking gap in the bridge into the rushing water below. 4 passenger carriages were then pulled over the edge by the engine car men, all disconnected from one another and many of them flying off in different directions. The 5th passenger carriage, car Z, came to a stop and almost half of it teetered over the edge of the gap. Cyril and a railway guard named William yelled to the stunned and terrified passengers inside that they had barely gotten a few words out. Waiting for the car sent it plummeting off the edge. The carriage then slammed into the water below, and a violent current carried it to a few hundred feet before it caught a river embankment and came to a stop. Now inside, the car was partially submerged in the rushing water. The 2 men hurried down the embankment and climbed into the side of the carriage. Simultaneously, one of the passengers, a man named John, squeezed out of a window, and all 3 of them began breaking the glass and pulling passengers to safety. Almost identical to the situation that Cyril found himself in, another man named Arthur, his wife, also saw the train plunge into the river. As Arthur ran down the riverbank to help, his wife rushed off to contact emergency services, although a police constable had heard the collision and arrived at the scene shortly afterward. Until more officials showed up, the constables reckoned the frantic rescue, as many of those who were even able to escape the passenger car were swept down the river. Some managed to make it to the safety of riverbanks eventually, but others were not so lucky.
Dunkin's $6 meal kit for sausage, egg, cheese, medium coffee, and 6 delicious hash browns, only at Dunkin'.
Give skin the good stuff. Treat it to plant milk with Dove. Plant-based cleansers with no sulfates or parabens, so you can really milk your shower moment. Upgrade to new Dove Plant Milk Cleansing Collection.
Back on the 5th passenger car that was on its side, those pulled up with Cyril, William, and John were then trapped on the upright side of the car with water rushing around on all sides. For 45 minutes, the scene was pure and total chaos. Meanwhile, in complete contrast, the passengers inside the 4 carriages that remained in the tracks below were calm and uncertain of what was happening. They believed that they were just in some kind of unexpected delay or that they had reached a station, and many of them were completely oblivious to the tragedy unfolding around them. Then, almost as quickly as the Lahar started, it dissipated around 11 o'clock and a more concerted rescue effort began. Conditions were still extremely dangerous though. The water was filled with mud and tephra, and from the locomotive, oil was spilled into the river. Some survivors were completely apprehended, and others even died from asphyxia from the mud and oil. And so, as the roar of the water faded, it was replaced by the survivors and rescuers alike. At the time as well, New Zealand didn't have any kind of national rescue organization, so those who responded to the scene were mixed with New Zealand Forestry Service, Ministry of Works, police, military, farmers, and other locals. A nearby military camp also brought as many able-bodied men as they could instead of a shelter for survivors. When the sun rose on Christmas Day, the scale of the disaster was finally realized. Parts of mangled train carriages and people were everywhere. The task of recovering them then got underway as families around the country gathered to celebrate Christmas morning with no knowledge of the disaster. At the time as well, New Zealand newspapers didn't print on Christmas Day, so word was slow to get around until a national broadcast interrupted regularly scheduled radio programming. The Prime Minister then had the grim duty to inform New Zealand about what had happened overnight in Tonga. With almost 300 people aboard the train at the time of the accident, and a population of just 2 million people, almost every citizen either knew someone on the train or someone indirectly impacted by the tragedy. As people were removed from the wreckage, the next task was to begin identifying, which can be a difficult task in the best of conditions. With so much blood and oil and water, almost everyone were completely coated. And as if that didn't make identification difficult enough, many of them had been mangled by debris, leaving some to pieces. Passengers were also from all around, meaning they had no medical or dental records that were available locally to assist in the identification process. Further compounding the problems, there wasn't much near Tugway, meaning there was a distinct shortage of refrigeration facilities to store them until they were cleaned. This caused the brushes to be rusty, leading to misidentifications. In fact, a few days after the disaster, police had so many unidentified that the chief inspector set up a funeral for family members. Prior to entering the makeshift mortuary, the inspector gave a short talk to prepare everyone for what they were going to see. When he was finished, the doors of the mortuary opened to the sight of partially open coffins lined. Then, slowly, family members walked into the coffins to identify their family members. In all, 151 of the 285 people aboard the train didn't make it, making it by far New Zealand's worst railway disaster and the 8th worst in the world at the time. Among those who didn't make it, 21 people were initially unidentified and 20 were simply never found. Those who weren't recovered were believed to have washed out to the sea some 75 miles or 120 kilometers away. Adding to the tragedy, the making of the trains revealed a significant disparity between social classes. The way the passenger trains were set up, second-class carriages were situated closest to the locomotive. This was because, for a first-class fare, passengers could avoid the noise, coal dust fumes, and smoke from the engine car. As a result of this also put second-class passengers more at risk in the case of a head-on collision or derailment. And the disaster at Tonga was no different. Behind the locomotive were 4 second-class carriages, and behind those were 5 first-class carriages. All 4 of second-class carriages crashed into the water that night, and only one of the first-class cars ended up in the river. The first-class car that did tumble through the gap in the bridge was Car Z, the one that teetered on the edge for a moment that Cyril, William, and John rescued passengers from. Of the 22 people aboard Car Z, the 3 men managed to save 21 and bring them to safety. In contrast, of 170 second-class passengers, 142 didn't make it, accounting for 94% of the total casualties, while only 1 first-class passenger didn't make it. With all of that said, a later investigation into the disaster itself found that there was no fault for the driver or the rail company. It was just a horrific accident. An indirect factor, however, was earlier the harm. In 1925, a much less powerful surge came down from the mountain and battered the concrete bridge mounted to its volcanic debris and weakened the supports. Because this occurred underwater, however, it went undiscovered. This disaster remained one of the worst in New Zealand's history, and in the end, Cyril, William, John, and Arthur all received medals of recognition for their bravery from Queen Elizabeth II.
For those most in need, in the face of challenges that we must overcome. Together, we must fight, because today, we must win. We are Marines. We were made for this.
Newfoundland and Labrador is one of Canada's 10 provinces. It's located on the extreme eastern coast of North America. Within the province, the town of Couch Cove sits almost at the easternmost point of the continent, about 17 miles north of Newfoundland's capital city, St. John's. It's so far east that the town proclaims itself as the first to see the sun. Now, despite its proximity to St. John's, Couch Cove has a relatively remote feel to it. Even today, only about 2,000 people call it home, and far fewer were living in the area in the late 1800s. But despite its small size, the colony of picturesque would be drastically undersized in natural beauty of the oceanfront town. The coastline that Couch Cove occupies is about as gorgeous as it gets, with tall, rocky cliffs that rise from a boulder-strewn shore. Massive waves also crash into the cove, providing much of the quaint town a near constant sound of the roaring sea. Initially a British territory until 1949, Newfoundland was and still is significant to seafaring industries. Because of this, it was naturally an ideal place for shipbuilding, and in 1869, the Brits completed a schooner that was dubbed the Water Witch. Compared to other ships of the time, there was nothing really different or special about the vessel in its single-deck, double-mast configuration. The water wedge was 69 feet or 21 meters long and about 19 feet or 6 feet wide, so it wasn't built to be the biggest or fastest ship in the period. It also wasn't constructed to cross oceans. Instead, it was intended to be a vessel that hugged the coastline and transported cargo and people relatively short distances, which was a purpose that it served well. In the early evening of November 29, 1875, the water wedge left St. John's with 25 people, including 50-year-old Captain Samuel Spraglin. The rest of the ship's occupants were other members of the crew and were carrying provisions back home for the winter. The ship was bound for the tiny town of Cape Mint on Conception Bay, which was its home port. This routine 40-mile trip would take the ship north from St. John's, then around Cape St. Francis on the northeast side of the Avalon Peninsula, then southwest of the Cape Mints. When the water wedge departed St. John's, the weather was similar to what Pouchco was experiencing early in the evening, which were strong winds and snowfall. These weren't optimal sailing conditions, but they weren't impossible either, at least not until later that night. As the weather gained intensity, though, visibility diminished to almost nothing, and the captain and crew of the water wedge were left navigating the ship based on nothing more than the sounds of waves, travel time, and the sense of the sea they developed over years of sailing. As evening turned to night, the captain used those factors to pinpoint on his map where the ship most likely was. When he marked their probable location, he saw that they were clear of Cape St. Francis, and the ship could begin to turn west, which he ordered. This was a decision that would be met with disastrous consequences. Around 9:30 p.m., the lookout from the crow's nest showed a frantic warning about there being rocks straight ahead, but Samuel thought that couldn't be possible. He then looked toward the bow of the ship, and while there was still a bit of distance between the water wedge and the rocky coast, he immediately knew it was too late to do anything about it. As it turned out, they weren't in fact clear of Cape St. Francis. The strong southwesterly wind had slowed the water wedge's forward progress, so instead, the water wedge was heading directly into an area known as Ord Gulch. This ominous name was fitting, too. Ord Gulch is little more than a narrow slit in the coastline where cliffs hundreds of feet tall concentrate the power waves between their walls before they crash into the gulch's furthest inland wall. There's no true sense of shore in the gulch either, because the water is very deep right up to the edge of the coastline. So, for example, if you stand at sea level and drop a stone into the water, the stone will fall a great distance before hitting the bottom, because there's no gradual slope or shallow shore. Instead, the waves have carved out a deep, turbulent area beneath the surface, making the water depth significant even near the shore. This churning action of waves also prevents anything that falls into the water from easily escaping. Standing at the bow, it was clear to Samuel that the impact of the far bottom was going to be worse than any boat collision he'd ever experienced before. As the water wedge rapidly approached the cliff face, Samuel, his son, and two of them could position themselves at the bow's rail. A moment later, they leapt from the boulders that jutted out of the gulch's waters, making it just before the water wedge slammed into the wall, which immediately destroyed much of the bow. In fact, it hit so hard that the ship rebounded backward some distance, and after seeing their captain and fellow crewmen make their desperate leap for the rocks, 9 other crew members jumped before the second impact and managed to avoid being smashed in the collision. This second collision was so violent and so damaging to the ship that just seconds later, the water wedge slipped out of the waters. It then sank to the deep bottom of the gulch with 8 remaining men and 4 women still aboard. With the ship resting at the bottom of the ocean, 13 survivors clung to the rocks around Ord Gulch. Samuel and those who jumped with him ended up on one side, while 9 others who left before the second impact were in a much more dangerous position across the gulch. They barely had enough room for each of them to stand on the wet, sloping ledge that's etched a few feet above the churning water below. And horrifyingly, above them was a sheer cliff face 600 feet or 180 meters high. Samuel and the others were in a bit of a better spot. Behind them was a hill with a steep grade of about 40 degrees, a trench that ran the same 600 feet from the bare top. If they were going to survive, the captain and those with him would have to pull their way through a long, steep, slippery slope that was covered with overgrown brush, and then try to find help in the area where they had no idea where they were. And if that wasn't enough of a challenge, they had to do this on a pitch black night with blinding snow and winds, while soaking wet, freezing temperatures, and without any ropes or anything else. This was a next to impossible task, but they didn't have much of a choice either. They could either stay on the rocks and get battered by the waves and either drown or succumb to hypothermia, or they could die trying to save themselves. So, Samuel, his son, and the 2 women latched on the rocks of the trench and started their dangerous climb after shouting to the others that they were going to get help. By some miracle, sometime later, they all reached the top and were exhausted and in disbelief that they were still alive. They then took a moment to catch their breath and check each other over to make sure that they reached okay. And incredibly, somehow they defied the odds without suffering more than a few scratches and bruises. Once that was over, they had to confront the next problem. As they looked around, the limited visibility they had to work with, there was nothing at the top of the cliff. No houses, no roads, no signs of civilization. All they could really do was choose a random direction, the wrong choice could lead them nowhere, which would be a death sentence for the men they left behind, and probably for themselves too. Then, suddenly, they heard the faint sound of a dog barking to the south, and that was enough to help them make a decision on which way to go. Still soaked to the bone, with the freezing wind at their backs, they trudged through the snow with nothing more than a few dog barks to guide them. Because the visibility was so poor, men would be walking by houses occupied by people, never knowing, so in hopes that someone would hear them, they shouted as they walked. Around 1:30 a.m., one of them spotted a light on their snow, and as they drew closer to it, a small cottage came into view.
Get a little hangry. Just that plant milk with Dove. Try new Dove plant milk cleansing collection. Unlock the new world of efficiency with the sauna. Automate workflows so your team will have less follow-up and more follows through. Identify blockers to keep your projects and goals on track. Increase efficiency for your team today. Try it for free at asana.com.
A man named William Langley was sleeping soundly until some strange sound began to wake him up. As he sat completely still in bed and listened closely, he could swear he heard voices. They were distant and barely perceptible, pointing the William questioned whether or not his mind was playing tricks on him. However, the voices grew louder and it became clear that it was neither his imagination nor the wind. In fact, it sounded like 4 separate voices, each of them desperately screaming for help. William then hastily rushed to the front door to see what all the shouting was about. When he threw the door open, he never expected that he would find himself in the middle of one of the most harrowing disasters in human history. Just the sight of Samuel and the others was enough to communicate to William that these men had been through some kind of horrible ordeal. This was then confirmed to him as Samuel explained the predicament through a shaky, shivering voice. William then hurried them inside the house to warm them up, and the 4 men huddled near the fire. William then grabbed some brandy and blew them warm. Once he was certain they were settled, he told them he was going to go around and keep help. Throwing on a coat and a hat, he entered the stone and went door to door, gathering as many able-bodied pouch coat men as he could. By 3 o'clock that morning, half the town was awake as citizens sprang into action upon hearing the news of the shipwreck and the trapped survivors. Many of them grabbed any equipment that could come in handy to the rest, run to the houses and gathered near William's house. Finally, armed with lanterns, ropes, and brandy, the team began to walk to the door. Because Samuel and the 3 other men were in such bad shape, they remained in William's house, and the rest was vague directions that could lead them to the location of the shipwreck. By their description, however, locals could tell they were referring to Moore Gulch, and as they neared the cliffs that overlooked the area, the screams and cries of the men were looking to be heard. When the survivors heard the rescuers shout and return, they begged for a rope or anything else that could get them off the precipice. This response then allowed the rescuers to pinpoint their locations since the dark night and snow obscured any view of them. However, even with ropes and lanterns, the rescuers would be far more dangerous than the climbing Samuel and the other crewmen undertook. Reaching the survivors meant somehow descending 600 feet of near vertical cliff face. As the volunteers huddled to form their plan, there was only one conclusion any of them could come to. Someone would have to be brave enough to dangle from the end of the rope all the way down to the ledge where the survivors clung to right. The men then looked at one another. With little hesitation, the fisherman named Alfred Moore stepped forward and tied the end of the thin rope around his waist before walking to the edge of the cliff. The other end of the rope was affixed to a nearby tree, but between the tree and Alfred, each of the remaining volunteers grabbed onto the rope, putting every bit of manpower to lower them safely. Alfred then stepped back tentatively over the edge, but as soon as he let go of the cliff, the wind swung the rope down to immediately into an out-of-control spin. There would end up being 3 different attempts to lower him, and all 3 ended with Alfred being pulled back up to the top of the cliff. Finally, on the 4th try, he was able to maintain just enough control to reach the end of the rope slab, which put him on a ledge of his own. The problem was that he was still 30 feet or 9 meters above the 9 shipwreck survivors. By then, the morning sun was also starting to rise, and Alfred could finally lay eyes on them, and he could hardly keep the precariousness of the ledges they were on, or his own for that matter. Still, he had no choice but to try to rescue them. Alfred then dropped a hand rope down to the men, and used that rope as a guide when he dropped the end of the stronger rope that would be used for pulling each of them up. Once that reached them, the first man tied it around his waist. As this was happening, some of the volunteers used the rope that Alfred was attached to as a guide to strategically position themselves on multiple ledges to collect apparent heights. The men remained at the top to better concentrate their strength on more solid ground, while those in the ledges would help pull survivors up as well as relay communication between the men at the top and Alfred at the bottom. Once the rope was secured around the first survivor who was ready, Alfred signaled to the men and they started to pull. It felt like it took forever, but hand over hand, the rescuers pulled until the first man was safely at the top of the cliff. Almost immediately, he was met with a shot of brandy before being guided to a pouch coat where he could be attended to by those who remained behind. This was a process that took hours and cost volunteers every single bit of energy to have, but 7 more survivors were saved in the same manner as the first. That left just one frightened and soaked boy on a separate ledge. It was clear that he would die if he wasn't saved as quickly as possible, but his position put his rescue in doubt. The volunteers wondered if they could get Alfred to him, but they at least had to try. They then repositioned Alfred, and he flung the end of a rope in his direction. The boy managed to catch him, and using what little energy he had left, he tied it around his waist. When he was finally lifted off the rocky ledge, he had been stuck there, clinging to life for 10.5 hours. He was so exhausted that some of the men had to carry him all the way back to Pouchco, where each house in the entire town had opened its doors to his shipwrecked men. As the storm settled and the survivors were cared for back in Pouchco, more volunteers set about retrieving the body of those who perished when the water which impacted the rocks of the gulch. Tragically, 6 of the 12 who died were members of Samuel's family. In Pouchco, coffins awaited dead as each body was carefully and reverently placed inside before being shipped back to Loveland for proper burial. Most of those they pulled from their act were surprised and good shape. One of the younger men was found with his legs completely gone, demonstrating just how forcefully the ship hit the rock before it gulch. In the aftermath, Alfred's selfless actions left him earned in the nickname Brave Alfred, which stuck with him for the rest of his life. His fearlessness also earned him a silver medal from the British Royal Navy Society. The 5 other men who went part of the way down the cliff to assist each received bronze medals as well. All of these survivors of the shipwreck made full accountants. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. If you have a story suggestion, feel free to submit it to me in the form found in the description. And hopefully, I will see you next time.
Now get the $6 meal kit, get a medium coffee, sausage, egg, cheese, and 6 delicious hash browns, only at Dunkin'.
Ooh, you're gonna love this degradable body deal. It's all day protection for under $10. I like it. A lot. Yes, a lot of you.
In November of 1913, a storm unlike any other descended on the Great Lakes. And despite not forming over the world's massive oceans, it would go to rival the strength of a hurricane with ferocious winds, blinding snow, and towering 35-foot or 11-meter waves. I'm sure you can imagine what it might be like to be shipped in those conditions. This is the story of the White Hurricane, and as always, viewer discretion is advised. For many people, when they think of lakes, they might think of calm waters, gentle waves, and shorelines in every direction. But for people who live in and around North America's Great Lakes, the perception is different. People who've been out on the water, storm on one event, know that they are much, much different. The Great Lakes that border parts of the United States and Canada are the largest group of freshwater lakes on the planet, with a total area of 94,000 square miles or 244,000 square kilometers. And in total, they contain an astounding 21% of the entire world's freshwater by volume. And for context, if you were to spread that amount of water across the entire continent of North America, it would be 5 feet deep all around. The lakes that make up what are known as the Great Lakes are Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario. And due to their incredible size, the 5 Great Lakes actually are like seas or even small oceans. Horizons are often distant, and the waters can be more than just a little bit choppy. Rolling waves also aren't uncommon, and neither are strong winds and currents, and they can reach great depths too. The deepest part of the Great Lakes can be found in Lake Superior, with a depth of 1,332 feet or 406 meters. And another unique aspect about the Great Lakes is that due to their size, similar to the oceans, they take longer to cool in winter and warm in summer. So in fact, while the areas around the shorelines do turn to ice during the winter, middle sections of each lake usually don't freeze over fully. This, in addition to their total area, helps create their own weather ecosystem, which usually manifests in the form of what's called the lake effect snow. This can occur anytime between late fall and early spring, and is the result of westerly winds picking up the warmer air and moisture from the lake surface. As this warmer, wetter air meets the colder, drier air on the coast, moisture concentrates to produce what can sometimes be heavy snowfall. And while meteorologists can spot conditions that are primed for lake effect snow, it can be difficult to accurately determine how long lake effect snow will last and how much of it will fall. As you might imagine, this is especially important for cargo freighters, as the Great Lakes have long been significant waters for the shipping industry. All the lakes are interconnected by various natural waterways, meaning a port as far west of Duluth, Minnesota has access all the way to the St. Lawrence River on the eastern half of New York State. And while we do have significantly better technology and systems in place to provide a clear picture of upcoming weather for everyone, that just wasn't the case more than 100 years ago. In 1913, the Weather Bureau, which today is known as the National Weather Service, was already in operation, but their methods were fairly primitive compared to what we might see on news channels today. And a particular problem with the Great Lakes is that they can often be so unpredictable that by the time observations were made and readings were taken, the hand-drawn weather maps meant for ship captains could easily be completely out of date by the time they were distributed. And this was even the case for the signal stations that utilized a system of flags, pennants, and lanterns to update changing conditions in every Great Lakes harbor. Typically, using different combinations of the three signals, harbors would indicate to ship captains what the next 24 hours would be like, including wind speed, wind direction, and potential precipitation. This information would then help them chart a proper course or make appropriate plans to avoid the worst conditions on the Great Lakes. Tragically, though, there were no weather models or signal systems at the time that were good enough to keep up with the magnitude of what would come in November of 1913. November, in particular, can be an interesting month for the Great Lakes. This is usually when the seasons really start to change for the northern Midwest and northeast of the United States and relative parts of Canada. And when the 470-foot steamer known as L.C. Waldo left port in Minnesota on November 7th, it did so in weather that was calm and temperatures that were warm for that time of the year. The ship was bound for Ohio, where they crew of 22, including the captain's wife and her mother and a ship dog, along with a full load of iron ore. Now, because conditions can start to become more temperamental in November, cargo companies usually rush to fill as many orders as possible before the winter season sets in and the shipping season closes until springtime. However, as the Waldo set up for what should have been a routine trip through Lake Superior into Lake Huron and finishing Lake Erie, no one had any idea what kind of trouble was already brewing. Cold, dry air from Canada was moving south, and warm, moist air was heading north from the Gulf of Mexico. When they clashed, they created a growing weather system that quickly became massive. Then, as the cold air moved into the Great Lakes, it started to pick up moisture from the water below, which again was warmer than the air. This caused the storm to start to spin the same way a hurricane would. And unfortunately, when the storm started to gather strength on November 6th, the Weather Bureau had only predicted moderate to brisk winds from the 7th with some occasional rain. This initially mild forecast wasn't nearly enough to deter Captain John W. Doubleson of the Waldo from delivering a supply of iron ore to Ohio. And simultaneously, many other ship captains felt the same way with the report and went about the Great Lakes shipping lanes as normal. However, by just 10 a.m. on the morning of November 7th, it appeared to the 112 Weather Bureau signal stations around the Great Lakes that conditions were deteriorating fast. The weather system that moved into the western region of Lake Superior was heading quickly toward Lake Michigan and picking up a lot of steam along the way. The signal station reports that it hoisted a square red flag with a black center as well as a red pennant. This indicated to captains that storm winds would be blowing from the southwest at 55 miles or 89 kilometers an hour. The western Great Lakes region then started to get hit by these winds, and by nightfall, Lake Superior signal stations were reporting sustained winds of 60 miles or 97 kilometers an hour and gusts up to 80 miles or 130 kilometers an hour. To put that into perspective, winds that are characterized as hurricane force are those in excess of 74 miles or 119 kilometers an hour. That means that the storm was already reaching hurricane force winds. And to put this into perspective further, the largest waves of the Great Lakes are thought to reach as much as 35 feet or 10 meters high. That's almost the full height of the Waldo. In waves that big, as a ship moves down into the valley between two waves, it's as if there are walls of water encasing the ship in all directions. The Waldo, which was well into Lake Superior, obviously couldn't help but notice the winds picking up as the storm system caught up to the ship. The lake's waters had started to turn to violent whitecaps, and then shortly after that, the precipitation started. A combination of heavy snow and icy rain fell, quickly reducing visibility for John and his crew, and further complicating sailing conditions with the sustained winds of 60 miles an hour that created these huge waves that broke against the bow. Water was also constantly streaming across the deck, and the rapidly falling temperatures took over the marine, turning into ice. So before long, the Waldo was nearly encased in it, adding tons of weight to the ship as it rocked violently in the turbulent lake. By 9 o'clock, things had gotten so bad that John was steering the ship based on compass readings alone. For the next 3 hours, John and the crew did their best to just keep the ship upright and on its proper heading. When midnight rolled around, the captain took a hard look at the map to see if he could identify some place to take shelter from the storm. And not too far ahead was Manitou Island, about midway across Lake Superior, and his hope was that that area could provide the ship with at least some safety. But then, after sending the Waldo in the direction of the island, a massive rogue wave smashed into the side of the ship with so much force that it nearly destroyed the pilot house. The destruction was so significant that it knocked down all the navigational equipment and left those inside exposed to the bitter elements outside. Without a compass now, John and those aboard were in trouble, but he knew there was a spare inside one of the ship's lifeboats. Getting it, however, would be treacherous because the deck was nothing but a complete sheet of ice at that point. Still, if there was any hope of getting somewhere safely, he needed that compass, so one of the crew was sent down to get it. The man then skated and stumbled along the deck as the Waldo rocked violently, but thankfully he would manage to make it to the lifeboat and find the compass before carefully making his way back to what remained of the pilot house. John then continued to guide the ship toward Manitou Island, where there was much more trouble that lay just ahead. Just west of the island was an island, which was barely more than a rock sticking out of the lake, known as Gull Rock. You can picture this as sort of the sharp peak of an underwater mountain, and it was something that appeared on John's map, but the only way to really avoid it was to spot it. But obviously, with the relentless snow, along with the dark of night and the bottoms of the lake, the lookouts didn't stand a chance of seeing it. Then, further complicating the issues the crew already had to confront, the ship's rudder suddenly failed, leaving the Waldo unsteerable and helpless. So, just as the salvation of Manitou Island would be found at any moment, the Waldo slammed into Gull Rock in the early hours of November 8th. As the 8th got underway, the Weather Bureau released its morning report and upgraded the storm system to severe. Those on the lake, however, were already well aware of this. The storm had grown so large by then that it covered the entire basin of Lake Superior. And as it moved east over Lake Michigan, winds there reached gale force, which is a classification of sustained winds just shy of 40 miles or 63 kilometers an hour. Around all the signal stations, gale wind flags were flown, yet many of the ship captains just sailed right by them, believing the vessels could withstand gale force conditions. Those already on the lake, on the other hand, were told a much different story. Back aboard the Waldo, things were in complete chaos after the collision with Gull Rock, although this development would present an opportunity to John. As he considered what to do next under the circumstances, he came up with an idea. If he continued to run the engines, it might be enough to keep the ship aground on Gull Rock. In his mind, the worst-case scenario would be that the heavy waves would toss the Waldo back into the middle of the lake, where it could receive even more damage. So, deciding that this was the best course of action, John sent the order to the engine room. Moments later, as hoped, this resulted in the valve becoming firmly wedged on Gull Rock, with the force of the engine placing immense pressure on the already damaged steel hull. As this continued, the hull weakened and began to shred. And as it did, a large crevasse formed horizontally on the deck, almost at the ship's midway point. With the Waldo taking on water, most captains might have already abandoned the ship, but John saw another opportunity. If he could make the ship heavy enough, it might also prevent it from rebounding off the rock and back into the lake, so he ordered that the lower compartments be purposely flooded. Almost immediately, once again, this actually seemed to work, and the Waldo seemed firmly planted in place. With that settled, his priority became getting it to a safe area, and at that moment, the best spot to keep everyone was an interior room just beneath the first deck near the bow of the ship. Upon getting these orders, many of the crew rushed to that room, and several of them attempted to guide the two women aboard there, but they initially refused to leave the stern. This was because, again, getting to the room would be traversing the icy deck and braving the storm for hundreds of feet, in addition to navigating over the widening crack that was threatening to split the Waldo in two. The crew had then agreed to carry the two men the entire way, and while it was a harrowing few minutes to get to them, they reached the relative safety of the room unscathed. And in almost perfect timing, almost as soon as those aboard gathered in the room, the crack in the ship gave way, and the stern sheared off and fell into the land and sank, leaving the Waldo powerless. Fortunately, the bow was already stuck on Gull Rock, but this meant there was no power and thus no heat to keep the crew warm. This also meant that all of the passengers of the Waldo were quite literally stuck in a small room in the middle of Lake Superior, in the middle of the worst storm the lake had ever seen. As the crew began to take stock of the situation, one of the ship's engineers believed he could fashion a stove out of some of the items on board. So gathering several of the crewmen, they made their way to the captain's quarters, where they set about detaching the bathtub in front of the ship. Once it was free, they carried it back to the room while others gathered up fire buckets and started to kick the bottoms out of them. Once the tub was in the room, they flipped it over and used the buckets and began to build a stovepipe leading out one of the portholes. Then, once everything was all finished and set up, they began a fire and began burning wood from the ship, which started to make a bit of difference in the cold room. Throughout the rest of the day afterward, crewmen would tear apart parts of the ship for firewood while others tried to move around in the room to keep warm. While the whole new crew were just trying to survive the conditions on Lake Superior, just to the southeast, Lake Huron was about to start catching the first bands of what would become known as the White Hurricane. And many captains who left port on the morning of November 8th under the gale force warning flags very much regretted the decision by the night of November 9th. During the early part of the day, conditions were what would be considered normal for a November gale, and there were even signs that the storm was lifting as barometric pressures at some of the signal stations started to rise. This, however, would be a completely false hope. The Weather Bureau issued reports to ship captains twice per day, once in the morning and once in the evening. Between then, captains were on their own to determine what the weather might do based on their observations alone. The first report on November 9th came out at around 8 a.m. and there was nothing concerning enough on it to prevent more ship captains from entering the Great Lakes. What the Weather Bureau didn't know was that a second low-pressure system had formed over the Carolinas and was moving fast toward the northwest after passing from Washington, D.C. And ahead of this storm were strong winds that fed the system, already wreaking havoc on the Great Lakes, and the longer this occurred, the higher the winds blew. And before long, they also reached hurricane force. Already by 2 p.m. that afternoon, Buffalo Eagle was reporting 80 mile or 130 kilometer per hour winds on Lake Erie as the new low-pressure system continued rotating to the northwest. As the two storms grew closer and closer, the winds only grew stronger, and by late afternoon, ships on Lake Huron were racing to find shelter before things got any worse. Unfortunately, though, many of them wouldn't escape the massive waves that were forming. At 8 p.m., the Weather Bureau issued its second weather report of the day, but it was already far too late to prevent a disaster. The two storms were continuing on their collision course with hurricane-force winds that constantly changed directions and swirling snow that blinded captains from anything just beyond their windshields. When the report finally came through, the four western lakes of Superior, Michigan, Huron, and Erie were sitting underneath a weather system that had never been seen before. By then, winds at Harbor Beach, Michigan, on the coast of Lake Huron were gusting up to 90 miles or 140 kilometers an hour. On the scale used for actual hurricanes, the White Hurricane would be considered a strong Category 1. And so, over just a 6-hour period on the night of November 9th, 8 ships would capsize or sink and 187 lives would be lost. At the same time that the White Hurricane was moving eastward that night, conditions weren't any better at Gull Rock as they spiraled to the Waldo tried to make it through the storm.
Very dry, tight, sensitive skin, relieve it in 60 seconds with a Vino Skin Relief. It's smoothing for the lip complex, clinically proven to restore skin's moisture barrier for 72-hour hydration. Aveeno.
With food and water stored in a part of the ship that was now accessible, things could quickly become dire if the ordeal was prolonged and they didn't lead off anyone on land was aware of their position more than the native rats. Luckily, as it turned out, those on land did know about the Waldo situation, but it's unclear if this was the result of a passing ship or locals on land spotting it. Either way, rescue stations nearby received reports about the Waldo, and despite the horrendous weather conditions, began to mobilize in an attempt to save those on board before it was too late. At the nearby Eagle Harbor, the large boat that would have handled the weather much better was being repaired, so they were forced to use their 26-foot motorized vessel. Just going out the storm at all, regardless of both sides, was like a death mission, but the Great Lakes rescue stations had a motto they lived by, which was, you have to go out, but you don't have to come back. Despite this courageous sentiment, though, as the small motorboat left Eagle Harbor, one local said that someone should alert Washington because the entire rescue team wasn't going to survive this. But even still, they pushed to Lake Superior and were tossed around by the choppy waters. Things weren't progressing well at all, and after about 8 miles or 13 kilometers from Eagle Harbor, they turned back around and the small motor became completely encrusted in ice. When they arrived back at the station, there was so much ice on the boat that some of the rescuers were frozen to their seats and had to be chopped free with an axe. Incredibly though, once they were all unstuck, they quickly readied the larger boat, hoping it was fixed enough to survive a successful rescue mission. At another harbor known as Portage, which was further away from the wreck site, the rescue team didn't fare much better. Heading directly into ferocious winds, they were quickly turned back, but instead of returning to the station, they managed to find an inland waterway that would take them to the south side of the peninsula where Gull Rock is close to. By doing this, they could use the northerly winds favorably in hopes of reaching the disabled Waldo. By the time November 9 turned into the 10th, the two massive, powerful storms had become one. That morning, it began moving over London, Ontario, and the trailing bands were full of lake-effect snow that was relentless. Further south in Cleveland, Ohio, on the banks of Lake Erie, 17 inches or 43 centimeters of snow fell that day, and winds caused snowdrifts topping out at 6 feet or almost 2 meters tall. And even on land, many people got stranded. Many streetcar operators were completely stuck in their vehicles for the next 2 nights as lake-effect snow continued to bury the city. However, finally, on November 11th, the storm started to lose steam as it moved away from the Great Lakes that were feeding its intensity. It was on this day that rescue crews from Eagle Harbor and Portage finally reached the Garden of Waldo. Despite being located only about 30 miles from the wreck site, the Portage crew traveled more than 80 miles to reach it using their inland route. And despite the storm in the area, the waves were so very large, making it difficult to tie off any of the boats to the wreck. On one attempt to leave the Portage boat, even scraped against Gull Rock, and the crew was worried they were taking on water. The Eagle Harbor team, however, finally moved their large boat against the hull of the Waldo. When the two ships were tied together, one of the rescuers took off his boots and prepared to board the ship, thinking his bull saws would give him better traction. Because from the outside, moving to the Waldo looked like something out of the Ice Age. The entire bow of the ship was completely encased in frozen lake water. Once he was aboard the ship, the rescuers followed behind him as they all wanted to pull anyone who survived the wreck might hear them and call back. Meanwhile, inside the ship, the shouts were heard and spirits immediately lifted among the weakened, hungry, and dehydrated survivors. Those inside the room began to call back, and rescuers quickly traced down the source of the shouts. However, when they got to the room, there was a new problem. The ice had become so thick and all-encompassing that the case the room door moved inside and outside. So next, while rescuers began to hack away at the ice with axes, one of the survivors did the same inside the room. It took some time, but finally enough of the ice that welded the door shut was chipped away from the door to be pushed open. One by one afterward, the rescuers carefully guided those who had been trapped onto the rescue ships. And incredibly, all 24 people and the ship's dog would survive the ordeal. In the end, John's decision to run the engine at full board to wedge the Waldo onto Gull Rock proved to be the difference between life and death. In fact, it was so stuck on Gull Rock that it remained there until the following spring. The destruction caused by White Hurricane started to come to view as the days passed, and it was immense. At least 19 ships were destroyed in the storm, and another 19 were stranded. And among those lost to the storm, 12 sank, and many of those were the newest and largest sail of the Great Lakes at the time. But maybe more devastating than that was the loss of life. On both land and the lakes, 250 people were killed, and 75% of the total death toll was during the 60s.
When I first started assembling this little device to generate electricity straight from the dirt, my friends laughed at me. But when they saw how it powered my home every single day, they couldn't believe it. They wanted to try it too, and I was happy to help because tough times are coming. The way I see it, having your own power is about as smart as it gets. The grid, can't count on it. When the lights go out, they can stay out for weeks, maybe months. You can't rely on the government or those big power companies to keep things running. What you need is a way to make electricity whenever you want, without messing around.
As the clock ticked past midnight on a balmy December evening in 1998, all was calm aboard the cruise ship Monarch of the Seas. She was built for luxury, and at the time exemplified the best of the best in modern cruising. She was 3,937 gross tons, one of the largest cruise ships in the world. That evening, she navigated through the waters off St. Martin to the Caribbean. Passengers indulged in gourmet cuisine, lavish entertainment, and breathtaking views. As everybody settled in for the night, they were totally unaware of what was about to happen. In seconds, their carefree trip was transformed when their ship dragged itself over the reef, tearing the hull like tissue paper. What happened over the next few hours was a brilliant demonstration of why ship safety measures were in place and how they could save hundreds of lives. Curiously, the incident been forgotten almost entirely by the general public. Ladies and gentlemen, your friend might break commercial under the science. This is what happened to the Monarch of the Seas. Monarch of the Seas, operated by Royal Caribbean International, was a favourite for many in the cruise industry in the 1990s. Its substantial gross tonnage, 73,937 tonnes, impressive length of about 880 feet, 268 metres, she was equipped with an impressive range of amenities and features including an outdoor basketball court, climbing wall, a selection of pools, usual bars and restaurants. But it hadn't all been smooth sailing. Early in her construction, the ship had been gutted by a fire after a welding accident. She had to be rebuilt to a shipyard. Despite its import magnificence, all was not well with this ship. As few aboard could know, it soon be involved in an incident that almost sunk all of those safety standards and procedures that have been generated for the last few decades into practice. In the early hours of Tuesday, December 15th, 1998, on a journey from the US Virgin Islands to Martinique, Monarch of the Seas had to make an unplanned stop. The ship was forced to make an emergency diversion to Phillipsburg, St. Martin. The passenger on board suffered from a suspected heart attack and had to be disembarked immediately. As the passenger was escorted ashore, the ship's doctor, nurse, and a small detachment of crew, Monarch of the Seas waited in the pristine waters off Wreck Bay, staying in position under her bow thrusters and her engines. All conditions were light, visibility was clear in all directions. At about 1:25 a.m., the doctor and his small team returned on board. The ship's crew prepared to get back on track to their original destination, Martinique. And this is where things began to go wrong. There were 5 crew members on the cruise that night: the captain, the staff captain, the second in command, the officer on watch, the helmsman, and the 2 duty helmers was asked to serve as the captain. Once everyone was back on board, the captain was faced with a challenge as the ship had to negotiate getting around a nearby dangerous crossing line. He navigated primarily by side, relying on assistance from the officer on watch to make calculations using the ship's automatic radar, logging aid, or ARPA for short. The calculations he made that night were the ship would pass the reef in the closest possible approach, distance of some 3 cables or about 350 miles. The reefs lighted night marker board, which essentially marked it out to have at night time. Fortunately, the crew would soon find out that the calculations of the plotted course were all wrong. About 1:28 a.m., the ship's captain handed navigation duties over to the officer on the watch because of an unexpected problem. He was suffering from a gastrointestinal issue and spreading throughout the ship. According to the bridge, he confirmed twice with the crew in their position at a safe distance from the buoy and the seen at that point and headed down to his quarters. The later investigation of the staff captain, who was not part of the navigation methods, noted that he was actually surprised to see the ship's course was being set past east, across the light, pretty light buoy, which was not unusual. But he didn't question it. The course taken on the night was considered a more direct, riskier course toward Martinique. This was most likely done to make up for the time lost disembarking the sick passenger. The officer on watch began making a planned course change to take the vessel safely around the south side of the reef. The two seemingly benign things happened next. A call came through regarding a passenger complaining of noise, which the officer on watch said he would attend to shortly. An automatic smoke alarm sounded on the bridge, which was quickly silenced by the lookout and cleared of any issues. Then, a moment later, 1:30 a.m., the Monarch of the Seas course started changing. It happened. The ship raced across the cross-light reef at a speed of 12 knots. While it was not stuck on the reef, the damage had been clearly done. Feeling the vibrations within, the captain raced straight back to the bridge. He burst in and demanded, "Where are we? What has happened? Take command of this ship." After conducting a thorough assessment of the damage, it was soon apparent that the vessel had suffered significant structural impact. The open gash along the starboard side of the hull ran 40 metres. It's 131 feet long by 2 meters, 6.5 feet wide. 2 basketball courts. She was opened up and Monarch began taking on water, going down like a The number of tanks and compartments below the waterline began to flood. Arms were helpless against the flow of water rushing into the ship. It was clear she was living on borrowed time. About 1:35 a.m., Monarch of the Seas continued to take on water. The captain consulted with the senior officers and made the decision to return to St. Martin and intentionally ground the ship on a sandbank in Great Bay. This would prevent the vessel from sinking completely or, most dangerously of all, listing and capsizing before an evacuation. The situation growing increasingly dire, the crew now faced a race against time to ensure safety for themselves as well as their passengers. 12 minutes later, 7 short blasts, 1 long blast from the ship's public address system signaled a general emergency to all passengers and crew. To avoid a panic, the captain made them aware that the PA system knew the exact nature of the situation, and this was crucial. I'll come back to that later. What happened next was a orderly, careful evacuation which came from years of drill and delicate preparations. Miami's marine operations and the St. Martin port authorities were notified in turn. Ship's lifeboats were made ready for launching, and then, ashore, the Coast Guard began readying local tender vessels to actually assist in the evacuation. For the next hour, as frequent updates were given over the public address system, English, Spanish, French, and German, the captain requesting repeatedly the passengers and crew be dressed, on their life jackets and report to their muster stations. It was time to prepare to abandon the ship. At about 2:35 a.m., the captain then intentionally guided his ship into a soft sandbar in St. Martin's Creek Bank, grounding it smoothly to a hole with no further damage. Monarch was now, thankfully, at no risk of sinking. The evacuation could properly get underway. Over the following 3 hours, those shore-based tender boats from the St. Martin carried all 2,500-odd passengers safely away from the ship. The breaking dawn showed a very strange sight. On up the seas, down by the head, a slick of oil on the surface, pristine as you would see. Despite the dramatic scene, though, disastrous loss of life had been averted, and everybody was safe and safe. So, what exactly did go on? Well, of course, following the incident came pretty major investigations that were to discard everything very forensically, to pick apart all the circumstances from right areas. This was led jointly by the Norwegian maritime investigator and the US Coast Guard. A meticulous inquiry aimed to dissect every aspect of the ship's operations. The results were documented in a 62-page report outlining every detail of the crime. It makes it very interesting, dramatic. Through thorough interviews, detailed data analysis, and in-depth evidence examination, it became very clear that the accident was caused by what the investigation called, direct quote, a myriad performance deficiencies. All the ship's radar and navigation equipment had been found to be in fine order. It soon became clear to investigators that the crew had been entirely involved. For now, there were plenty of critical or obvious oversights, like, for example, failure to refer to updated charts that mapped out the correct location across the lake reef line. The report also found that the original course plotted past the reef mid-set without the ship's actual exact position having been marked first, which is really ship navigation 101 type stuff. In fact, the captain, when he left the bridge, had simply assumed that the coordinates were themselves. The crew had tracked this, they would have found their vessel had actually drifted quite a lot while it had been stopped disembarking a sick passenger. Drift was never taken into account when setting the new course using the ARPA, automatic radar plotting aid. Not only that, the report actually found that there was too much reliance on the reef's lifebuoy and the actual ARPA as the sole markers for determining the ship's position in relation to the reef. Using GPS or even just traditional navigational techniques like terrestrial navigation would have given an accurate fix on the monarch's position. Coupled with a lack of cohesion and awareness among the bridge crew, the stage was set for an accident of epic proportions. Deeper examination revealed there had been a complete breakdown in communication between the bridge crew, the captain, and other key departments. The captain himself was distracted by his gut mission. He did not pass command over to the staff captain because of it. Departure checklists went unused. The staff captain, the second most senior officer on board, had no idea of the captain's plans. He was actually surprised by the course he had chosen. The report found that he trusted the captain so implicitly that he never questioned him about it. The seemingly benign phone call from the ship's purser concerning the passenger training of boys and fire alarm that sounded, both of those things had distracted the bridge crew's focus and critical.
One of these people uses the new Colgate Total Active Prevention System. 8 times more effective at fighting the root cause of many oral health problems. As for the other guy,
Sarah? Good luck.
beat it is ready through Colgate Total.
Big scratch. More happy.
Back, crew member who is actually trying to block Monarch's position by the radar, as well as keeping his eye on the reef's marker buoy, and then also take the phone call from the purser, and then try to handle all three of those tasks at the same time. There are already stretched resources on the bridge, saddle, and more issues. Not for those mundane distractions, the bridge crew actually noticed what was about to happen. Despite many of the circumstances leading up to this, some accommodations actually reserved for the captain and the crew for the actions taken after the routing. The safe beaching of the ships over the sink, and evacuation that worked like clockwork. It showed that thanks to all the careful drills and intensive safety training, a big ship could be evacuated in a short amount of time and everybody got away safely. Monarch of the Sea's passengers had expected a holiday in the sun, so truly a vacation they would never forget. Monarch's captain and senior officers were found to have committed at least 11 specific errors which caused the accident. The captain's behaviour was blamed on complacency. He knew those orders well, and then many times before, lulled into a false sense of security. When combined with the pressing health issue, he was clearly ready to cut some corners. More worryingly, though, the report found that the captain's complacency registered with the crew. Confidence. He seemed completely in control of the situation, so nobody didn't question him, not even his own second in command. It's telling that many of the recommendations made by the report refer specifically to human resources and management. Future crews should go through team building exercises together. Senior officers should be trained specifically as regards communicating and dealing with their junior subordinates. There's actually one final twist there in this report, because it turns out that one of the ship's watertight doors hadn't closed properly before, and the ship not been intended to be beached. The Monarch was sunk. The whole story serves as a cautionary tale for any would-be captains and sailors out there. Complacency. It doesn't matter how many times you've been in that stretch of water before, bending the rules can, often does, lead to disaster. Monarch of the Seas was lucky because she could be beached and saved. Other ships, like Costa Concordia, recently in 2012, were not so fortunate. The Monarch story has gone down largely forgotten to history, but its lessons shouldn't be forgotten. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your friend Mike Brady from Hoteldudley Designs. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get new videos out weekly. If you want to support my work, get really cool perks like behind the scenes and early access, please visit my Patreon and link in the description below. Sign up as a YouTube member. Join the crew. As always, stay safe, stay happy. See you again next time.
Our morning espressos look a little different from the original ways. 17 years ago. Still laugh at my stories, even though I know they're not that funny. So what do you miss when I'm back home? This will be with us forever. I'm so glad we're here.
There's so many ways to dunk with the new GMC Double Dunking Bucket. Grab one for your party, just $25.
Most famous shipping disasters have happened out of sight, under cover of darkness, like that of Titanic, or in a raging storm. The simple truth is that for hundreds of years, computers have taken to the ocean in ships, but the camera is a relatively recent development. Before the camera was up to painters and artists to recreate how disasters at sea might look. Nowadays, people can play witness to real events without having to actually be there. The result is chilling. The results of dramatic collisions, the aftermath of deadly storms, dramatic rescue of people from burning ships. Ladies and gentlemen, your friend Mike Brady from Hoteldudley Designs, these are my picks of some of the most dramatic shipping disasters ever caught on camera. Said in the video once that as long as ships have existed, there have naturally been things for ships to run into. Obviously, one of those things is other ships. The results can be extraordinarily deadly, as we explored in our video on Press of Ireland. But sometimes the conditions are just right, and lives can be saved. Unfortunately, the results of one such collision were actually filmed back in 1914, and it's really dramatic stuff. The SS Iona was a small steamer built in 1912, 6,500 registered tons, just over 407 feet, 124 meters in length. No giant by any means, but a steady, reliable ship with Class 8 each named for a US state. They would link the US mainland with Hawaii way, regularly carrying out refrigerated cargo from the West Coast. Her early career was fairly straightforward, using a 490,000 cubic feet of storage space to ship exotic goods like pineapples and sugars back from Hawaii. Then, the most dramatic thing happened in October 1914. This time, she was steaming out of New York since the Panama Canal had opened, allowing trade to the eastern seaboard as well. Iowa was steaming at a decent clip through the entrance of the Ambrose Channel, then seaways that leads into New York and New Jersey. This is a tightly packed, busy bit of water, only 5.8 miles or 9.5 kilometers across the entrance. That might sound big to us landlubbers, but to a ship's crew, it's almost as narrow as it gets, with much more area. You can only imagine how tough it would be to navigate if you couldn't see ahead. Well, that October day, as Iowa steamed through the channel for open ocean at speed, had rolled in totally obscured visibility. In situations like this, it was considered the best thing for ships to slow right down, but to continue moving ahead, to maintain something called the steerage weight, which is just enough water rushing over the rudder to ensure that the ship would actually turn. Now, at a dead stop, the ship is effectively uncontrollable. It could easily drift into a leaf shore, that is, the nearby coastline, in the direction the wind is blowing. Now, Iowa's skipper, Captain R. Pearson, would seem to slow down. Instead, he set about customarily blasting his whistle and tentacles to warn his approach. But then, out of the fog ahead, there loomed another ship. A small passenger steamer SS Metapan. Metapan was a combination cargo passenger liner run by the United Fruit Company, about 3,000 tons smaller than Iowa. The ship was entering the Channel from New York loaded with fruit and South and Central American passengers. But unlike Iowa, she was actually stopped at the tracks waiting for the fog to pass. 300 yards or 250 meters between them, the collision should have been totally avoided. Metapan blasted her whistles, but Iowa kept on coming, seeming to ignore the danger. With no attempt made to change course, Iowa simply dropped her anchors in an attempt to slow down. With a deep crunch and a lurch, the two ships collided. Iowa sank her bow about halfway through the Metapan's forward hull. In the course of the collision, the two ships were separated and lost again. Metapan's skipper now had to act quickly. With tons and tons of water now roaring in, he rushed his ship to the shallow channel bank to beach it, preventing it from totally sinking. He got his lifeboats ready and lowered his passengers away. With a sickening lurch, Metapan struck the bottom of the channel and stuck fast while his stern was comically lifted clear of the water. The result was a pathetic sight. Metapan half sunken, resting on the bottom, with the couch taken out of the bow. Fortunately, the evacuation was perfectly executed without casualties. This remarkable bit of footage was taken with rescue and survey vessels showing the extent of the damage and poor old Metapan frozen in place on the channel bank. This is a fairly obscure event, so I've been able to track down the results of the accident. Passengers and crew blamed Iowa for not slowing down or changing course when the ships spotted one another. Iowa's bow was crushed, but she was returned to service and went on to become a true transport cargo vessel, which served successfully until the World Wars. Metapan was patched, refloated, and eventually sunk by mine without casualties in the Second World War. This time her sinking was quick. Sadly though, not all maritime incidents are as relatively harmless as that of the Iowan and the Metapan. Captured on film in 1954 as the overturned hull of a Japanese ferry ship called Toyo. This is one of the worst peacetime maritime disasters of all time.
Style. Or substance. Or use another choice. Don't stop until you have everything. In the GMC Sierra Denali Ultimate, we are professional grade.
On an effort to rebuild Japan's merchant fleet. Japan's navy had been simply shattered by the Second World War. In fact, all the nation's dozens and dozens of new passenger ships from before the war, only two had survived, including the Okinawa crew, which is today moored in Yokohama's museum ship. Toyama was no giant, but she was modern, almost 4,000 registered tons and 390 feet, 119 meters long. The ship was a ferry designed to link the railhead between Japan's two main islands, Ebori and Hakodate was a 4.5-hour trip, 5 kilometers, 33 miles of which would be through Kitsugawa Strait. Toimaru was a new style of ferry, roll-on, roll-off ferry, which was covered on this channel before. Suffice it to say, the style of ship had a bit of a trouble beginning, as they relied on cars being able to drive straight into the hull, resulting in poor watertight subdivision, allowing easy access, and huge doors that were a natural Achilles heel design. Now, the Tsuguru Strait is a particularly rough bit of water, essentially. The open sea, given the nickname, full of potholes and storm. In 1954, 7 years into Toimaru's career, the strait would live up to that moniker with deadly accuracy. Japan's typhoons are wild, raging storms that roar in, causing devastation. They are not short events, rather they tend to hang and boat around, sometimes blowing over the mainland, and other times swinging wildly out to sea. Typhoon Marie had smashed through the main island of Honshu in September 1954, and then lay offshore in the Sea of Japan. Toyomaru was maintaining her usually busy schedule, an important one for the link the two main Japanese islands. On September 26, the departure from Hakodate was delayed, so Captain observed and predicted the path of the typhoon. It was predicted to hit the Tsuguru Strait and blow clean through sometime around 5 p.m. Now, another ferry's trip was cancelled entirely, so that ship's cars and passengers were instead loaded aboard Toyomaru as well. The ship sat waiting for a chance to cross all day. Hours later, 5 p.m., the weather had begun to clear as predicted. Toyomaru's captain assumed the typhoon had passed safely through the area. The ferry completed loading, made steam, and set off for Aomori. Tragically, Toyomaru's captain was missing to the wind. Typhoon Marie had somehow picked up the tower at its time in the Sea of Japan, which was unusual. It was now an extra tropical cyclone, winds howling through at incredible speeds. It hadn't cleared the strait at all. Instead, it was going to remain in place an entire day. Toyomaru was going to steam right harder. Sure enough, conditions got gradually worse. Wind picking up, the ferry's captain must have realised his mistake. Less than half an hour after leaving, he decided to wait for the typhoon to calm and anchor his ship near Hakodate before it had just left. It was a simple enough manoeuvre in calm weather, a tall order, a storm. The anchor didn't hold. The ferry slipped away, drifting at the storm's mercy. Those big doors designed to allow cars conveniently into the ship now began to take on tons of water, and they would prove to be Toyomaru's undoing. The ship's bases flooded, her engines died, and she was soon completely without any power or any control. For 3 hours, the ship was battered about by wind and huge seas until she finally came to rest at 10:30 p.m. ground off Nae Beach, only 4 kilometers, just shy of 3 miles backwards, where she'd set out hours earlier. Monstrous, strong waves battering the ship's hull were dangerous plain. Although the town of Hakodate was agonizingly close by, the shore was just 100 meters away. The ship was stuck in the shallows, gradually being thrown over onto the side. Just 15 minutes or so after grounding, Toyomaru was capsized and flooded quickly. The ship's lifeboats broke their lines and washed clean away on tons of equipment. Lots of those on board escaped and survived with a tragic matter of simple luck. There were around 1,300 people on board. The next day it had become clear that just 150 had survived. This remarkable footage shows Toyomaru capsized in relatively shallow water, the ship's underside pointing to the sky. While meanwhile, the Nanae Beach was littered with debris, including the ship's boats and life preserver. A party of 35 American GIs, artillerymen from the 1st Cavalry Division, had been aboard. Only one survived as he was likely swept out of the ship's hull brought up to port.
This delectable Knorr ramen noodle recipe will put an end to your drive-through dinner rituals. Throw that Knorr bouillon in that tasty combo with delightful carrots and the rich tender bok chili. Make your own Knorr taste combo. It's not fast food, but it's so good.
Toyomaru wasn't just the only casualty of Typhoon Marie. All other ferries were sunk, and many other ships were beached, like this cargo vessel which is lying less than 100 meters away from the Toyomaru's overturned hull. In the end, the rough state of the Tsuguru Strait, the frequency of bad storms expedited the construction of a tunnel, Tunnel, which today operates a high-speed Shinkansen service spanning some 40.5 miles, or 23.3 kilometers under the sea, with a dangerous woman who calls the storm. Of course, huge storms are not just unique to Japan. Massive seas are taking down ships across the globe. In 1960, a huge North Atlantic storm broke a tanker Queen in half. Pine Ridge was a tanker built for the US merchant navy during the Second World War, a time of booming industry for the nations that rushed to output as many ships as possible. In the end, America's shipyards built an incredible 6,000 hulls in just 5 years of wartime as part of the emergency ship program. The speed at which these ships could be constructed is incredibly impressive. In fact, a full Liberty ship, some 7,000 registered tons, 441 feet long, could be launched in just 24 days after the keel was laid. But with the rush of increased output came some serious quality control issues. A quickly employed workforce lacked years of welding experience. The result was often poor weld seams that were prone to cracking under extreme stresses. Now, this might not be an issue if the ships were designed to mitigate cracks or at least control them, to radiate them away from vital sections of the ship's structure. Big open shafts like cargo hatches with their sharp, square corners became a natural stress and failure point, and this was not accounted for in the ship's design. On top of all of this was the quality of steel. That used at the time was fairly brittle by today's standards. Back in December on this channel, we examined the story of the steamer Schenectady, which had snapped completely in two while she was tied up at fifth outboard. Throughout the war, there were 1,500 reported examples of brittle hull fractures on the likes of Liberty ships, 12 of those broke spontaneously in half. The cause was attributed to something called ductile brittle transition temperature. At a certain point, cold water can change steel's character, that of ductility, and is made fairly flexible, to brittleness, or prone to cracking. Of course, the frigid North Atlantic Ocean was behind this, and subsequent ships were built with design changes to accommodate for it. Even so, ships built during the war exhibited some dangerous characteristics, especially in North Atlantic storms. Tankers like Pine Ridge were long and narrow. With tall waves and troughs, they could have monumental forces concentrated at their centers. In 1952, a storm had caught two World War II era tankers, SS Maneuver and Fort Mercer, which both broke apart and sank with the loss of 5 lives. Years later, in 1960, it was SS Pine Ridge's turn. On a trip from New York to Corpus Christi, ballast was not loaded with a cargo of fuel, the tanker was caught in massive seas of wind. On Cape Hatteras, the ship was battered and thrown around until finally it all became too much. A disturbing crack and a huge groan, the ship was broken cleanly into two sections which quickly separated. The bow section of 8 men, including the ship's captain, sank, and the men were lost in the storm. Curiously, the stern section's watertight bulkheads held up, and 28 men aboard anxiously awaited rescue. After the dangerous conditions had died down, this incredible footage was taken, showing from the inside Pine Ridge's decapitated stern section floating dead in the water. Fortunately, the majority of the ship's crew was rescued by the aircraft carrier USS Valley Forge. The ship's stern was found to be in a good state of seaworthiness and was towed slowly home just 3 knots, eventually making it to Newport shipyard with her flag flying half-mast out of respect for her 8 lost men. The shipbuilders at Newport who's got to work, the stern was welded to numerous other components to make a real Frankenstein monster of a ship. The forward bow section of the T2 tanker Redstone, midship section of the T3 tanker Sachem. The result was a new ship named Meadowbrook, which was into service 2 years after the disaster to enjoy another 20-odd years at sea before scrapping in the 1980s. Finally, we will return to the waters of New Jersey, which is a real hotspot when it comes to maritime incidents and disasters. Here in 1934, passers-by and residents were drawn out in their thousands by the horrible sight of ocean liner burning stem to stern on their doorsteps. Captured on camera for the world to see, the liner Morrow Castle was scorched and tank was wrecked, almost within spitting distance of the on the shore, with 137 of the vessel's crew were lost. How the Morrow Castle came to be in such a sad state was a fascinating story. In some 4 years earlier, in 1930, with her construction and launch. Built for the American War Line, Morrow Castle was an intermediate passenger liner of 11,500 gross registered tons, 446 feet length, and turbo electric propulsion, drive her through the water at a steady 20 knots. With capacity for around 190 passengers, Murray Castle was designed to quickly and efficiently carry holiday-makers and business people, mail and general cargo alike to Cuba from the US mainland. The route was a popular and profitable one. Murray Castle and her sister Orient were built with luxurious standards in mind, two classes of passengers, featuring elaborate lounges, sumptuous cabins, and clean, elegant public spaces. The ship was the latest thing in technology, direction-finding navigation assistance, eventually gyro compass and echo sound equipment, making her a vessel ideal for navigating the difficult waterways on the approach to New York. Morro Castle was capable of making the voyage to Havana in under 60 hours. For 4 years, she had a happy career, doing well for her owners and providing American travelers the rare treat of enjoying a dream company, new prohibitions, alcohol restrictions. Well, that came to a crashing, dramatic end in September 1934. The ship was making a return voyage to New York and Cuba.
Sea views for days. Oh, and when I tell you the Virgin Voyages food is absolutely unreal, and it's all included. This has been truly amazing. But next time, you really need to be here.
Get your sauce on with the new KFC Dunkin' Bucket. Grab yours for just $7.
September 5th, as the ship steamed away from Havana with 549 people on board, the weather began to turn. By the 7th, the ship was trundling along up the eastern US coast, heavy rain had fallen. A big squall began to bend Morro Castle, pitch, and roll. That night, the ship's captain, Robert Wilmot, had his dinner inside his cabin. Crew and officers were shocked. Shortly afterwards, he suddenly died of a heart attack. It was an incredibly ill omen for the usually happy ship, with just a small port to enter the hottest to come. Morro Castle's chief officer, William Warnes, assumed command. The ship continued on as the wind from the seas picked up. All seemed well as the ship approached the entrance to the channel to take her to New York City. With just 8 miles and 30 kilometers to go, at 2:50 a.m. on the morning of September 8th, the passenger claimed Steward Daniel Campbell that he smells. They were in the smoking room at the time. Not much else to do to pass the time. Campbell began to hunt the source of the smell. And then, first class riding room on B-Deck, he spotted smoke pouring out of a small locker that held paper, pens, and uniforms. Campbell got hold of a nearby fire extinguisher and opened the locker to try to put the fire out. Instead, it surged with the influx of oxygen. By the time the bridge was made aware, several crewmen were throwing buckets of water into the locker to try to stop the blaze as passengers were dying. Alarmingly, the flames began to flow down, out of the locker and onto the carpet, the lush drapes of the writing room, rising up to the ceiling, beginning to rage out of control. Soon after, the room had to be evacuated. As crewmen struggled with a fire hose and hydrant, the fire raged white hot. They couldn't know it at the time, it was being fanned by the ship's comprehensive ventilation system, usually a blessing for ships operating in hot tropical climates, but on top, where the winds and heavy seas were raging, huge volumes of fresh air were being vented down to fan the flames. Morro Castle's elegant wood panels and sumptuous furnishings gold up by the fire and quickly spread. By the time the indicator panel on the bridge lit up to show the presence of flames, it was already too late. As the fire spread throughout the ship, crews and fire hydrants and hoses were dismayed, and water pressure vanished as the system was overwhelmed by the sheer number of hoses in operation at the same time. The ship burning out from under his feet, acting Captain Warnes knew that he really had a little time to act. He wanted to beach his ship on the nearby Jersey shore, and soon the main switchboards throughout the vessel were lifted out and the power cut out. Then, the lines leading the ship's keel and telemotor to the steering gear, rudders were burned, and all control over the vessel with a huge swell was lost as well. Now all bright like beam in the dark, Morro Castle drifted and burned as passengers and crew desperately tried to get lifeboats over the side and away. Only 6 of her 12 boats had been launched, terrible twisting and rolling in the ship through huge seas. The next day, about 7:30 p.m., Jersey residents were stunned to see the hull Morro Castle wash up on their doorstep, still smouldering in the darkening evening light. The ship had burned completely through at such incredible speed, the passengers became cut off from escape and forced to make a terrible decision: burn or jump. Swimming in those conditions was a near impossibility, but still, passengers and crew were forced to jump for their lives, leaving whatever clothes or possessions they had at the ship's stern railing. Morrow Castle loomed large over the Asbury Park beach, which smoked and hissed as the fire continued to blow hot. 135 passengers and crew lost in the disaster from the complement of 549. Toll, which could have been far higher for enough for rescue effort from a handful of passenger ships and smaller boats which braved the new spots. This incredible footage was shot in the nearby town of Asbury Park. Morrow Castle beached herself. Thousands came out of the Sierra and camera crews captured terrifying footage of the charred walls of this once proud ship. Morrow Castle deserves a much bigger, more comprehensive retelling, something I'm keen to do on this channel in the future. Suffice it to say, subsequent inquiries and investigations have sparked well-founded conjecture and conspiracy theories ever since. How exactly a fire came to break out inside a locked cupboard in the night was, and still is, unknown. The fire was eventually dismissed as something of an act of God. William Vaughan, the chief officer, and others in charge of negligence, they had their charges thrown out and killed. The details surrounding the events leading up to the fire, the captain's untimely, unexpected death, the outbreak itself, are murky and very ominous. Captain Wilmot died after eating his dinner complaining of stomach pains, but he also supposedly claimed earlier that some unknown person on board the ship meant him harm. Chief radio operator George Rogers was hailed as a hero of the disaster. He told investigators that his assistant was the likely culprit, with lack of evidence in the investigation that ended. Shockingly, years later, Rogers was involved in a bizarre plot. His commanding officer, Lieutenant Vincent Doyle, was blown up by a mysterious package. The investigation into this crime called Rogers' criminal past, which included poisoning and a spate of mysterious fires. Rogers got a 20-year sentence for the attack on Doyle, who survived, albeit with permanent disabilities, but he only served 4 years. He was later found guilty of bludgeoning murder of an elderly couple, and he died in prison. Doyle maintained for years that he thought Rogers had set the fire aboard Morrow Castle. Today, many think that Rogers was behind Morrow Castle is lost, and the fact is that all evidence was destroyed by the fire itself as it swept through the ship, fueled by that highly flammable interior decor, blue timber and the shiny wooden weirds. The crew's handling of the fire was found to be incompetent. It's largely to blame for the number of lives lost, although, in their defense, the outbreak of a blaze middle of a storm at sea in the dead of night is a difficult set of circumstances to work with. The idea of arson on the part of Rogers was an attractive one. A former engineer also put forward the theory that the blaze was the result of burning uptakes, with larger pipes that funneled smoke from out of the ship's boilers and into the tall funnels. The rush of fresh air thanks to the storm was, he thought, likely to be uptakes overheated and glowed red hot. The cabinet in the writing room was just close enough nearby to the uptakes that the fire was caused by the transfer of heat. Whatever the case may be, Morrow Castle remains one of the most dramatic shipping disasters that take place off the US coast. A remarkable image of the towering ship burning through, looming high over New Jersey beach is one that is difficult to forget.
Solar Rider relies on UPS to help our adaptive golfers reclaim their lives.
Since forever, we've hated Mondays. Monday. But it doesn't have to be like this. Introducing Monday Hair Care. Our modern, award-winning formulas. Smooth, hydrate, and protect against whatever life throws at you. No more bad Mondays. Monday Hair Care.
This is one of the most inhospitable places on our planet. Antarctica, a frozen kingdom. It's 2007. the dead of night, a red cruise ship plunges ahead through ice and slush, engines rumbling as she makes slow headway. Aboard are around 154 passengers and crew, most of them tucked warmly away in their beds. They've got well used to the rhythmic throb of the engines, the occasional rattle of dense ice along the hull. But no fear, this cruise ship has been designed specifically for this, reinforced for just this kind of voyage. She should be impervious. Then there's a deep groan, a bang. The reinforced hull is torn open by the ice as easily as a tin can. In hours, it's all over. Passengers are set adrift in top lifeboats in one of the planet's most dangerous environments. Rescue seems like a forlorn hope. The Explorer had been built to operate in the ice. She'd done so successfully for nearly 4 decades. The ship had been built based on lessons from the past. Yet, it had happened. Ice had cut her hull and sent her to the bottom. How this saga played out in a series of events that sank a cruise ship in waters it was specifically designed to conquer stands as a fascinating warning, a reminder to us that nature is still always in control. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your friend Mike Brady from Ocean Liner Designs. This is the harrowing true story of the sinking of the Envy Explorer. Begins in the late 1960s, as a form of tourism is beginning to gain rapid popularity. Once, ships were useful only for carrying people between the world's continents. By the 1960s, the jet airliner had taken over. Great ocean liners disappeared almost overnight. But big passenger-carrying ships found a new purpose: cruising. Former liners carried people to beautiful sunny destinations like Hawaii and Canary Islands alike. But another kind of market was emerging: adventure tourism. The idea that passengers could be taken deliberately to far-flung, exotic destinations was a new and exciting one. An immediately attractive option where the poles, the Arctic, and the Antarctic. These spectacular frozen landscapes were a natural draw for tourists around the world. With virtually no infrastructure like hotels and restaurants on land, the only obvious way to see the glaciers, the icy mountains, and the waddling penguins is from the warm seat of the ship. For a time, cruises were run on converted merchant vessels. In the late 1960s, Swedish-American entrepreneur Lars Erik Lindblad thought that a purpose-built cruise ship would blow the potential polar adventure cruise market wide open. It already had a string of successes running other exotic cruises to the Falklands, Seychelles, and many more. But the draw of Antarctica on this customer base was clearly evident. He commissioned a ship almost 240 feet, 73 meters. About 2,400 tons, really larger than most luxury super yachts. The small size of the ship had the advantage of the intended cruise location. It should be maneuverable and more easily weave her way through patches of dense ice on the surface, an area where a larger ship would struggle to do the same. This new ship had to obviously feature some special design considerations because of the rigorous nature of its intended role and the danger. Now here, we need to step away for a minute and just talk about the history of ships and their encounters with the ice.
Love your plugins but wish you had more scent control? Introducing the new from Breeze Plug Scent Booster. Enjoy the same 50 days of continuous scent from Breeze Plug, including a quart of flexible placement options and a boost button for extra scent. New from Breeze Plug Scent Booster.
Most ships run into the ice as a dead center of the planets. It's been that way for hundreds and hundreds of years. In the glory days of sail, uncountable numbers of vast clipper ships and barks simply disappeared. All passengers and crew last sighted, they said, in the regions of known ice movements. There were a series of increasingly more worrying collisions in the early 20th century as ships got larger, faster, and then came Titanic. This day, people doubt an iceberg could cut through the ship's hull like it did. But bergs are not made of the same stuff you find floating around whiskey. They're often ancient, hardened rock, displacing hundreds, thousands, or even millions of tons of water. The biggest ice giants are unreal. They are floating islands of ship killed with terror. But, fortunately, have been taken away from the Titanic disaster. For one, the Atlantic International Ice Patrol tracks the large bergs that cut a lot of glaciers from the north. But there are regions of the world's oceans the Ice Patrol simply cannot observe. Then, in 1959, it had to begin. In a storm, the Danish passenger cargo liner the Hans Hedtoft was on their maiden voyage. She encountered an iceberg that popped open her riveted hull and sank her crew. There were no survivors. The ship simply disappeared. What was left was this one life. So here, in 1969, 10 years after the Hedtoft, was a ship being specifically designed to operate in a berg and ice-rich environment. So how do you protect such a ship? For one, it was the ship's hull itself that was an important part of the structure that tended to be actually in contact with humans. The ship was built with a hull rated to so-called 1C finished Swedish ice class. This meant that hull shoal plating broke thinner than 13 millimeters, about half an inch. She would be able to maintain a speed of about 5 knots in the waterway, around 0.6 meters or 23 inches of ice. Now, for reference, that kind of hull thickness, 13 mil, is usually reserved for passenger ships and vessels 5 or 10 times larger. All that extra steel would need to push through the dense ice, engines also needed to pack a punch, so machinery spaces, with a pair of diesels, each outputting 1,800 horsepower. Electrical generators and such, but mainly for the single screw, which would actually reverse the pitch, the angle of its blades, the ship to run backwards or stern. Just in case something went wrong, the vessel's watertight compartment system was designed so that she should stay afloat with any two of her compartments afloat. This first custom-built luxury expedition cruise ship, she was named Blood Explorer, while to her proud. The ship, eventually renamed to simply Explorer in 1992, had a very impressive, very lively career for such a relatively small vessel. Naturally, she established a series of firsts. The first purpose-built expedition cruise ship, the first cruise ship to navigate Northwest Passage, the first ship to circumnavigate James Ross Island, and the first ship to sail the Orient, the Amazon River. Clearly, Explorer was making a name for herself. Years spent exploring the globe earned her an reputation. Soon, the red ship, called her, would earn her final, her most dubious distinction of all, becoming the first cruise ship to sink in polar waters. In November 2007, Explorer set out for an exciting trip. This was designed to retrace the steps of the famous polar explorer Sir Ernest Shackleton. Over the course of 19 days, passengers would enjoy a trip that would take them from Argentina, out to the Falklands, South Georgia and Sandwich Islands, and down through the Drake Passage into the frozen water of Antarctica. Passengers on board were probably oblivious to the heat of the debate taking place in the polar exploration community about this exact time of the voyage. Explorer was especially as a ship. The decades since she had been built, nearly 40 years earlier, more and more cruise ships had entered the market and crowded the Antarctic water bodies. Few of these were properly ice-ready. This was a recipe for disaster, and a few people actually predicted it. The 2006 paper from Professors Emma J. Stewart and Diane Draper talked about the increased numbers of cruise ships in dangerous waters, especially those that lack proper ice training. For Explorer's part, that ship had her ice rating actually improved over the course of her career. As a 1A rated ship, she could, in theory, maintain 5 knots through ice a meter, only 40 inches thick, but only which was not consolidated, something which is called burst ice. Consolidated ice, which is layers of ice that melted and then frozen, is actually hardens the ice. It strengthens or consolidates it, freeze body, and snaps together. Obviously, this kind of ice is a ship's worst nightmare. Explorer's 4-decade-long career, she had navigated polar ice safely, save for 2 incidents, the ship was grounded. Explorer set out, called and stopped following the Shackleton expedition's footsteps. Passengers were delighted to see the wind-swept volcanoes, both Sandwich Islands, then, last, towering white glaciers and snow-capped Rocky Mountains of Antarctica. Passengers were joined by cruise line tour operators who were taken out on inflatable small boats called Zodiac, fun tours, coasts, explored rivers, and the glacial formations where the ship couldn't reach. November 18th, passengers explored a remote stretch of South Georgia Island on Zodiacs. November 21st, day 11 of the cruise, 49-year-old Captain Ben Lyman looked out of his stateroom window and noted a field of ice looking ahead of his ship. He wasn't concerned. Explorer had already skirted the ice field 2 days earlier. Just earlier, Lyman had actually altered his ship's course to avoid the worst of the ice, but now it's he'd need to cut his way through. As the sun set, Explorer's searchlight flicked past him. She began to cut away through the field. Speed reduced from 12 knots to 5, Explorer crawled on. Captain Lyman was new to his role as captain. This was his first voyage in command in his orders, but he was not new to the ship. Lyman had more than 20 years of experience at sea. In fact, he'd previously been Explorer's chief officer. Now he watched from the bridge as the ship's searchlights lit up the broken ice. He wasn't worried though. He judged the ice to just be first year ice. Exactly what Explorer designed to motivate. The ice rattled and scraped along the hull, but all seemed well. Passengers tucked to sleep in their bunks. The hours ticked by. Then, after midnight, Explorer was brought into a sudden stop. At that slow speed, it wasn't unusual for a formation of denser ice to hold the ship. The captain had a routine for this. So he reversed the vessel and then started forward again to battle her way. Explorer ran her propeller astern and surged forward, slowly making her way ahead, but then a single alarm rang on the bridge. This was a passenger cabin alarm. The bridge crew thought it had been accidentally triggered by the cabin's occupants, but she was still came so they could see the single load to figure out why it might be sounding. Minutes later, the captain received a chilling call.
Is your current immune support supplement giving you enough? Airborne's new and improved formula helps fill the holes your immune system may have with 7 key ingredients, including vitamin C, more zinc, and now vitamin D. It's our most complete immune support formula yet.
Still searching for the one? Olay Super Cream with SPF. The power of 5 in one super cream. To hydrate smooth, bright, firm, and protect. Skin just drinks it in. Boosts cells for more resilient skin. It's Super Cream. Only Olay.
Now on deck 3, there was flooding. Passenger cabin 3, 4, or as Explorer's lowest passengers. The cabin sat amidships, almost at the ship's very centre, 100 feet back in the tent of the bow. Just before, 2 passengers had been asleep in their bunks with an unusually heavy impact that dented in the side plate so violently it pinched one passenger's fin between his bunk and the ship's side. They were alarmed by the sound of running into on their line to find liquid water already on. As they explained themselves, the investigating sailor received a strange request from the bridge to taste the water. It was fresh, and it could seem to be a broken water pipe leading into the room. The taste revealed the water was salty. It was coming from outside the ship and was already cleaned up. The captain rushed below to check for himself and found the flooding around his feet. Somehow, the Explorer had been hauled, reinforced hull torn through by the ice regardless. It had started a ticking clock, preventing the flooding couldn't be stemmed, and the ship would be lost. 150-odd people on board would be stranded in the middle of the black Antarctic night. Captain Vine wasn't going to wait any time. He made an urgent announcement calling to the crew damage control party to assemble on deck 3, and then sounded the general alarm. Through the cabin was a series of tones, 7 short, 1 long, that woke sleeping passengers up. Announcements urged them to don clothing and gather in the main lounge to await further instruction. This was just a precaution. Captain Vine and his crew wanted to fight to save their ship. Water surged in and out the deck. The damage control party got to work. It wasn't just cabin 314, passengers in cabin 310. 312 had been woken by the impact too. They'd been just as alarmed to see water dribbling down the bulkheads. Check cabin 308 found the same thing. This presented a damage control part of the challenge. It was clearly Explorer's shell plate around skin had been ruptured to some distance, perhaps as much as 15 to 25 feet. The battle to save the ship had already begun. First, the engineering crew rigged pumps and began to discharge floodwater over the side. In cabin 314, the water level began to slowly drop as the pumps dealt with the flow. Then, in the engine control room, an alarm sounded. Water was flooding down from the decks above. The engineers could see it flowing down bulkheads and walls. Clearly, this was very bad. They started then 8 fire pumps and had to drain a few fire engine rooms. To preserve the ship's electrical power, watertight doors to the generator were shut. Back in cabin 314, crewmen struggled to find the source of the flooding. They used wrenches and tools to force decorative panels away the entire bucket. Still to no effect. In desperation, their hands badly numbed by the freezing water, they attacked the panels with fire axes to attempt to break through the shell plate behind them. Nearly beside the paneling, crewmen was able to feel water surging in from what he described as a fist-sized hole. Thinking quickly, they jammed bedding into the hole, forced to shut the plywood to the metal bar to maintain pressure. The flow stemmed. Pumps at work, water level began to decrease, and it seemed like the flooding was under control. The captain was relieved. So relieved that he gave me up to the penguin lounge where his concerned passengers crowded about, dressed in heavy coats and bright orange light vests. He calmed them, let them know that all was good. Meanwhile, the distress caller had sent and received. One benefit of the surge in popularity of Antarctic tourism is that Explorer was not alone out there. A handful of expedition and cruise ships were within range. One of the first to pick up the message was one of Explorer's old fleet mates, then called National Geographic Endeavour, like Explorer, which was a small expedition cruise ship. Captain Wyman called her up by satellite phone to explain the situation. National Geographic Endeavour obtained more speed for Explorer's location. The express coastal ship moored North Coast, deployed as a kind of ferry, and then deployed as an Antarctic cruise ship during off-season, rushed to the position as well. So did the Chilean icebreaker. They were still hours away. At least Explorer's passengers and crew knew that help was on the way. But the flooding had already apparently been stemmed. Back up on deck, the captain organised for one of the Zodiac expedition boats, lowered over the side for a visual inspection. The theory was that if damage would actually be sighted from the outside of the ship, tarpaulin so it would sit flush and drawn into the actual hull itself by the water pressure, kind of plugged it in. Zodiac splashed out into the darkness, but no damage could be seen. Not only that, the tarpaulin could be pulled taut enough over the hull to cover any damage in the first place. Explorer began to list to one side. Clearly, the flooding hadn't been stemmed. It was simply pulling elsewhere deep inside, likely a luminous empty fuel tank below cabin 3.
Just spray, then play with Spruce, the new hard-working, worry-free weed killer.
Thirsty hair? Meet Aussie. It's giving moisture with a capital M, made for every type and texture. See, drench curls, make waves, and turn off the volume. Moisture made for everyone. Get Aussie. Awesome hair for everyone.
Surefire sign appeared in the engine. A trickle of water from above had turned into a steady stream. Even more alarming, the watertight door to the generator room was leaking. Water was pouring in through the seals on the top of the door. The ocean water began to flood the separator room, which presented immediate, serious danger. Now, if the main circuit breaker paneling there shorted out, it set off a chain reaction that would see crucial generators and pumps fail to provide fuel to the ship's main engines and the emergency generators, essentially leave the Explorer afloat in just 15 or 20 minutes. The Explorer would be blacked out, adrift, and alone. The engine room crew got to work back to transfer the fuel to the generators themselves. Then, around 2:15 a.m., remaining fuel to the gravity feed tanks ran out. Engines needed to be shut down immediately as the generator's fuel supply had cut off entirely. The ship was plunged suddenly into darkness. The Explorer now leading sharply to one side, only dim emergency lighting illuminating the corridors and the stairs. Captain Vineland's earlier sense of relief was replaced with profound worry. So too was that of the passengers, whose minutes prior had been told that all was well. Now, evacuation of the ship seemed certain. Urgent radio calls down to the engine room and the plane. The engines to come back online to explore needed to be out of the ice field, so the lifeboats could be lowered over the ship's side. They tried it in the ice field. The boats could actually be fouled and launched and capsized with disastrous event. Afterwards, the purpose-built polar exploration ship had been fitted with a magnetic array of 4 over-the-top lifeboats, which could provide virtually no protection or shelter whatsoever from all weather and freezing cold, both conditions which Explorer was expected to regularly encounter during her service. After nearly a half hour of battling with machinery, the engineers were able to start the generators and return power to the ship's lights and main propulsion, specifically her bow thruster. This was what the captain wanted to use to maneuver his ship away from the ice field into a clear sea surface where the boats could be loaded and launched. Wyman still didn't think Explorer was going to sink, and evacuation was just a precaution. As the engineers got the pumps going again down at the engine room, the lifeboats were at last swung out and the passengers began to move. Now, taken to the boats in the darkness was not the kind of fun and activity that Explorer's passengers had been promised. There was no rescue ship inside, just icy blackness all around. Here was where organizational problems began to rear their heads. Nobody knew their assigned boat because they hadn't been told where to go into the evacuation beyond the Penguin Muster Station. The passengers went from boat to boat, just looking for a blank spot they might be able to fit in. It was not a pretty scene. The crew yelled and shouted at one another. Most of all, the lifeboat's engines wouldn't start. Passengers were loaded tragically antiquated over the top boats. Every breath was chill air. Overtaking the lifeboats was not guaranteed for survival. As the blow came on, the seas rose, the boats would scatter. Forced to contend with the Antarctic's icy seas with no real room for protection. As it turned out, lifeboats were kitted out with things to screen and stored away to be corrected down. The crew either forgot about them or didn't know how to use them. None of them were put up. There was a brief scene of panic as lifeboat 3 hit the water and struggled to push off the Explorer's hull. Directly above them, lifeboat 1 paused as if she was about to come down right on top. There was an urgent struggle to push away before disaster struck. Fortunately, the boat slowly moved out of lifeboat 1's path. On the other side, left high to the air by the whisk, lifeboat 2 rattled down the ship's hull so alarmingly most inside thought it was going to capsize and the boat might tip down. Again, every reason to panic. Was the exact same scenario playing out with devastating effect in such sinking ships as the Empress of Ireland and Lusitania nearly a century before. Unfortunately, the sea state was initially fairly calm, so the lifeboats were plopped down into the water as it was just one more happy excursion out. There was a telltale sign that not all was well. The Explorer was, by this point, listing over to about 15 degrees. Walking from one side of the ship to the other was like walking up a steep hill. Down in the engine rooms, the battle to save the Explorer was slowly being lost. Despite the pumps and the engineers both working overtime, water level slowly continued to rise thanks to the water surging in the deck above. It slowly rose until generator 3 began using for safety and had to be shut down. Inspections of the deck above showed water pouring out from toilets and flooding the entire deck. The actual holes in the hull still couldn't be found. Agonizingly, slowly, the Explorer was being flooded by a visible series of punctures. The mast was sinking. More water was coming in, and the pumps would push out. It meant the Explorer was doomed. The battle was over, and the ship was going to sink. All the lifeboats away, every passenger accounted for, the chief engineer made his way to the bridge to report to the captain what he probably already knew. The Explorer was lost. The captain acted right away and called every single engineer who was still down in the flooded machinery spaces. Without ceremony, the party of engineers rigged the excursion zodiacs and ordered them left the captain and a small party of officers aboard the bridge. They wanted to try to stay behind on Explorer until the rescue ships could arrive, just in case the vessel would sink. Then, the unexpected happened. All the Explorer's engineering crew off the ship in their Zodiac boats, Explorer's variable pitch propeller, reverse pitch, and began to run full stop. The ship began to move, tracing a line of slow arc through the black water, backwards, wallowing like some kind of sad whale. The captain and his officers rushed to shut the engines down, but their kill switch in the bridge did nothing. They called out the engineers and the Zodiacs to come help and realized that the Explorer careening out of control would be too dangerous to even try to approach it. The heavy heart, Captain Bynum, the leading crew gathered on the bow, ordered the Zodiac alongside, and left the Explorer behind, heeling over to a sharp 20 degrees of east. The Explorer finally abandoned the passengers and crew to take their chances and over the top boat into the ocean and go home. To their dismay, the calm sea began to develop a slight shock and spray them with cold sea water. Only one main boat's engine even started. The three were joined by the Zodiacs who could take on the tow. Thermal blankets inside the boats had the zippers rusted shut, tore when people tried to use them, but they simply did nothing at all to protect against the bite. The shock worsened, dozens of passengers became seasick and shipped docked to work from boat to try it. The sun began to rise over the Antarctic Sea, after having spent a freezing but comfortable night in the top boats. The helicopter at last roared overhead with the promise of a rescue to come. It was an exciting sight to the people crammed in the small boats, and then, on the horizon, a searchlight was spotted. It was the Nord-Norge from the National Geographic deck. They had worked through the night to rush to the scene, and finally, at 6:25 a.m., the Explorer's lifeboats came alongside reassuringly tall hulls of their rescue ships. Rescue itself wasn't an easy task. Transferring people from the small Zodiacs to the boats and to the ships called for some delicate movements in the choppy seas. The rescue could not have been better timed. Just hours after all were safe and sound aboard, the gale roared through and probably overwhelmed and sunk the Explorer's little lifeboats in no time. Remarkably, the Explorer remained afloat for hours, sadly leaning heavily over. She was photographed by aircraft above. And that night, a full day after the initial impact, the Explorer was finally overwhelmed and sank to a depth of about 600 meters, or nearly 2,000 feet. Midland's intrepid little cruise ship, an expedition vessel that brought so much joy to people over 40 years, was gone. So, what had happened? Well, in 2006, a professor actually predicted that a cruise ship could be lost under these exact circumstances. What was shocking is that it was the Explorer, probably the most qualified ship to be operating in the area, that had been lost. An exhaustive investigation was launched that resulted in a 100-page final report that found a number of deficiencies in the ship's manual. First and foremost, it actually praised the crew's concern for the safety of the passengers and their battle to save the ship. Engineers had worked like lions to keep Explorer afloat. The captain had treated the situation with the seriousness it deserved too. Mustering the passengers right away was the right call. Abandoning the ship had been done as well as could be expected despite the initial confusion. If they'd waited any longer with boats on the high port side would have been installed. Evacuation would have needed to take place with Explorer running its backwards. It's likely one or more boats would have been swamped and lost. Dozens of good times.
Safe like the hair, safe like the place.
Nobody likes a cracked windshield. But at least you can go to safelight.com and schedule a fix in minutes. Go to safelight.com and schedule the replacement today.
Safe like the hair, safe like the place.
I got this wow skin from Olay Body Wash. Its new super serum sinks into my skin with 5 powerful ingredients. 5 benefits in one. Look at this Olay difference. So luminous. Olay Super Serum Body Wash.
The rescue itself was perfectly timed as thought, and the rescue ships not arrived for another hour or two. The passengers would have been lost thanks to hiding. It was just that difficult. Why had the ship run itself astern anyway? Well, it seems that the captain and officers, as they remained on the bridge, kept the ship's engine slow ahead to try and keep it bow into the waves or maybe move in the clear of the ice field. Then the hydraulic pressure, their propeller system, dropped, leading to flooding. The blades simply shifted angles. ships and force on the road. Explorer entered. The ship's watertight compartment scheme should have saved it. The investigation concluded that watertight doors failed thanks to small leaks caused by improper maintenance or slight water flooded through the holes and seeped through the sewage system to darkness down into the engine rooms below. It was impossible for our engineers to see. In the end, the investigation escaped and Captain Lyman judged leading up to the disaster. He had plenty of experience at sea and had actually captained a vessel to Antarctic waters. He had plenty of experience in Baltic where conditions are different, specifically the type of ice ships are expected to encounter. He had observed the ice field ahead and judged it to simply be first-year ice, rather than soft ice the Explorer could safely punch a way through. The reports and subsequent analysis suggest this may have been a rock hole, and scrappy clumps of small icebergs called growlers may hide just below the surface, shelves of dense land ice with glaciers and complex refrozen layers in between. This is the stuff that's harder than rock, and slices easily through the steel hull of the ship. The Explorer had been brought to a sudden stop by something large and dense. It seems likely that a hidden pack of consolidated ice had arrested her in her tracks and punctured her hull plate with wings. In his defense, Captain Lyman said he had no other choice than to punch his way through the ice. His Explorer was only about 4.5 miles away from reaching open water in safety. His confidence misplaced. The report draws attention to the captain's own testimony. He said he felt confident because he had a, quote, fully ice-class vessel in hand. This seems to indicate a reductive understanding of the Explorer's ice handling capabilities. Yes. The captain and crew did make one very large oversight. They hurried escape from the ship and neglected to remove the voyage data recorder, which is equivalent to an airplane black box. Without this crucial piece of information, conclusions had to be drawn based solely off recollections of fragments of video footage. Based on all the evidence they could gather, the investigation laid the blame and Captain Lyman's feet, all stemming from that initial decision to enter the ice field. He shouldn't have attempted to transit the field in the dark, and when he did enter the field, he thought he should have slowed the Explorer down even further. The report concluded the observation that Lyman had been trained for Antarctic conditions, specifically, he probably would not have decided to tackle the ice field in the dark at all. Thanks equally to the crew's fast actions, rescue ship's proximity, sheer good fortune, calm conditions, serious loss of life was averted. If just one of those three things had been different, most, if not all, of Explorer's passengers and crew would have been lost. Today, cruise tourism for Poles continues to steadily grow as people rush to have the opportunity to see some true, vast frontier wilderness of altitude. The story of the Explorer should stand as a reminder to all operators and owners of ships that complacency kills. In such dangerous waters as the polar seas, there's absolute no margin for error. Summer 1907, the coast of Scotland, where any luxury liner plows its way through the gentle sea. This ship is a revolutionary step forward, the largest liner yet built in Britain by far. For 2 years, an army of workers has toiled long and hard to fill the cavernous hull with the finest luxuries ever seen at sea. Now, she's on her builder's trials in the Firth of Clyde. It's an important day. The ship is the biggest, yes, but she also has to be the fastest. Every part of her being has been constructed with speed in mind. If she can't hit 24 knots, and her builders would be penalised if the ship might prove an embarrassment. Representatives of the owners, the builders, and the Admiralty will gather on the bridge. The wind rips at their bowler hats as the speed picks up. Now, she's moving all ahead full, her four propellers tearing through the ocean with furious intent. Like a long, thin knife, Liner cuts her way through the waves with ease. 20 knots, 21, 22. Can she hit the target? The men collectively hold their breaths and wait. Lusitania was the modern marvel of her time, an engineering wonder that combined all of the lessons learned in decades of hard work and ingenuity. She became a household name for her beauty and her grace. She carried tens of thousands of comfort and happiness across one of the world's largest oceans. Lusitania would not be remembered for her luxury or her revolutionary design. Instead, this great ship's career would be virtually forgotten and overshadowed instead by horrific tragedy. In 1915, worlds collided when Lusitania, the marvel of her era, met another technological wonder that would change the course of history: the submarine. Series of unfortunate events that lead to the chance of leading to hundreds of dead. One of the world's finest ships reduced to a rusting pile of wreckage on the sea.
Every day, our world gets a little more connected, or a little further apart. But then, there are moments that remind us to be more human.
Thank you for calling the insurance.
I was just in an accident.
Don't worry, we'll get you taken care of.
At Amica, we understand that looking out for each other is look around them. It's human. Amica, empathy is our best policy.
How Lusitania came to be, the path that led to her destruction, is one of the most incredible tales in modern history. That bright day in June 1907 saw Lusitania at her best, brand new, raring to show what she could do. Her turbine engines roared, the power wave flowed wide of her waterline, 22 knots, 23. Could she make the speed record? Lusitania sped on ahead and into the history books. May 1st, 1915, New York City, on a busy Saturday. The air hums with life. At Rush Stadium, the Yankees are demolishing the Philadelphia Athletics. Cars choke the city streets. Chauffeurs and taxi drivers drop off their passengers at the docks for a waiting steamer. The New York Times, page 19, after the stock reports, the real estate notices, varsity football news, baseball scores, readers could find the outgoing and incoming steamships, their destinations, and times of sailing. Individual lines are posted advertisements, the big names like White Star Line, and sandwiched in between notices for the Anchor Line and the New Stockbridge Hotel was a conspicuous warning. Notice, they read, travelers intending to embark on the Atlantic voyage are reminded the state of war exists between Germany and her allies, and Great Britain and her allies, that the zone of war includes the waters adjacent to the British Isles, that, in accordance with formal notice given by the Imperial German government, vessels flying the flag of Great Britain or any of her allies are liable to destruction in those waters, and that travelers sailing into the zone on ships of Great Britain or her allies do so at their own
obviously ominous message. Just a few lines above it could be found, printed in block letters, the name Lusitania. She was due to steam out of New York Harbor that very day. Early in the morning that Saturday, Lusitania sat aboard Cunard Line's Pier 54, a steady stream of passengers boarding from gangways and finding their staterooms on board. Lusitania was going to steam her way through a war zone. This was not one of Lusitania's normal sailings. The captain was quizzed by newsmen his confidence in being able to outrun his enemy. The newspaper notices aroused a huge amount of angst. Never mind, it said, Lusitania could outrun any submarine. But his confidence couldn't shake all of concern that hung over the Chelsea piers that morning as passengers swarmed the decks to wave their final goodbyes. Lusitania's whistles boomed out through the harbour, so worried this would be the great ship's last ever sight of New York. And they were right. Within the week, 3 and 5 of the beaming faces that lined Lusitania's railings would smile. What ended as a tragedy had begun years earlier as a monumental triumph. Its birth in New York had been the scene of many a joyous homecoming. There had once been a time when Lusitania was the finest ship in the world. In 1848, a curious-looking ship chugged its way into New York Harbor for the first time. Aptly named America, the ship carried a stinking, tall, red smokestack with thin, black bands. The telltale paint scheme of a shipping company that will one day become an empire. Samuel Cunard founded his line in 1840 with ships that ran initially between Liverpool, Halifax, and Boston. A few years later, it helped to dominate the transatlantic passenger trade. Mail contracts and government subsidies meant making the line between Liverpool and New York was a profitable venture for the company. The result was a quartet of purpose-built paddle ships, America as the class leader, and regular sailings into New York Harbor. It was the start of a relationship between Cunard Line and New York City that lasts to this day. But as the 1850s and 1860s wore on, competition emerged. Fierce competition. White Star Line, the England Line, Germany's German Lloyd, they all began to compete with Cunard and sparked the equivalent of an arms race. As every few years, each line tried to outdo the others by introducing the biggest, fastest, most luxurious ship. It was a game of tit for tat that lasted well into the 20th century. Cunard had plenty of wins in this contest. In 1897, Germany shocked the shipping world almost into stunned silence. North German Lloyd's SS Kaiser Wilhelm der Große was the world's first so-called superliner. Distinctively, she carried 4 enormous, tall bunkers. Almost overnight, virtually every other liner in the world looked second best by comparison. This wasn't just a fun contest anymore. National pride was tied up in the development of these ships. They became floating billboards of their home nations, underscoring the development of the ocean liner, a beautiful symbol of peace, prosperity, and the ugly development of weapons, torpedo boats, submarines, mighty battleships. Major nations of the world stockpiled immense quantities of weapons never before properly used on the battlefield. Machine guns, field artillery. It seemed inevitable there would be a boiling point reached someday soon. Most hoped for the cooler heads of it. The Cunard Line's fleet was, in the early 1900s, being completely overshadowed by the German companies, particularly North German Lloyd, followed up on their success with a trio of impressive sister ships with the Kaiser Wilhelm der Große. Cunard, this was a serious business threat. Britain itself, it simply could not do. The British Admiralty knew they needed a horse in the race. Ships capable of great speed, the size of the German liners, and obvious military potential. There was a problem. White Star Line, originally a British company, had been bought by an American conglomerate, left only one serious transatlantic player in British control, one horse in the race that the Admiralty could back to answer the German threat. Cunard Line. Cunard's chairman, Lord Inverclyde, was nothing if not a shrewd businessman. After taking over from his father, of course for decades, he had successfully navigated the company into the modern era of shipbuilding. Now, both his country's and his company's reputations as a state returned to the British government, appealing for investment towards a pair of liners that could outperform anything else afloat. The old agreements with the Admiralty ran deep with Cunard. The government naturally agreed, but under one condition. proposed ships needed to be built at specifications that they could easily be repurposed into warships in the event of the outbreak of war. The Clyde agreed, and history was about to be made. Under the agreement, Cunard was offered a vast loan, a yearly subsidy. The liners could maintain a maximum average speed of 24.5 knots and a minimum of 23.5. Just hitting those speeds wouldn't do. They needed to be easily maintained. As passenger-carrying ocean liners, it would make them the fastest ships in the world by far. This would serve a vital role in a potential war effort. A single installation of guns would transform these speed queens into vicious hunters, extremely difficult to get. The papers were signed, and so it was that two of history's most famous and glamorous peacetime liners were designed with a secret purpose and war in mind. Work officially began on hull number 367 on June 16, 1904. Her keel was laid down at John Brown & Co. shipyard in Scotland. When construction officially got underway, it was clear that almost every aspect of the ship's design could be summed up in one word: unprecedented. Immediate adjustments made at the shipyard to accommodate the liner's density. The slipway used for the ship's construction was the size of two smaller slipways from the previous generation combined. Adding to this was another unusual conundrum for engineers. The ship's 787-foot, 240-metre length was greater than the width of the Clyde where the shipyard was actually located, meaning she needed to be launched diagonally using the additional length afforded by a nearby tributary. Overseen by legendary naval architect Leonard Peskin, engineers began to map out a ship with aggressively fine lines. Getting and maintaining these required speeds was a tall one. The ship would need to prioritise speed above all else. Her plans were shown. The hull was long and extremely fine, like a chisel. Peskin's design teams tested models in an admiralty tank and refined stability. This was cutting-edge technology for the day. The ship's straight, plumb bow meant the liner would cut its way through the worst of the Atlantic's towering waves. The radical hull form would be useless without a suitably powerful engine to drive it forward. Unfortunately, John Brown, the Cunard line, had just the thing for it. The miracle machine was the Parsons turbine. Innovation engines could easily outperform the older style of triple expansion steam engine popular at the time. Steam rushed through under pressure to turn the giant rotor and the ship's propellers. The new liner would have 4 main turbines, giving her a brute force of some 60 to 70,000 horsepower. It would need almost an unthinkable amount of steam to feed the turbines. 25 fire-tube boilers lined the ship's bottom, fed by hand by hundreds of stokers who would need to shovel tons of coal around the clock to keep the ship roaring ahead. The exact layout of this machinery, how all those hundreds of tons of massive steel and iron equipment would even fit inside such a fine hull, was still being decided on. Not only that, the Admiralty had their own ideas of how things should be arranged below the waterline. In constructing liners, it was typical for work on the hull to begin at both ends and eventually meet in the middle. In the Lusitania's case, all work began at the bow. It left more time for the ship's engineers and machine workers to fine-tune the power plant that would be loaded into the ship's hull, and would ultimately be responsible for her cracking speeds. The design process took 2 long years. In 1902, Esfit's original concept showed a sleek ship with 3 enormous funnels. By the time the power plant had been chosen, it was clear that more boilers were needed. More boilers meant another smokestack to clear the smoke. Yard number 367 would be a 4-funnel ship. On a clear, bright June day in 1906, after months of construction, the ship was at last ready for her launch. The sun beat down her gleaming nameplate. There it spelled out Lusitania. It wasn't every day that the world's largest ocean liner took to the water for the first time, and almost every employee of John Brown & Co. shipyard was given the day off to the event. Passes were handed out to friends and family. Towering over their heads rose the bow of the largest ship ever, seemingly touching the sky in its immensity. Lord Inverclyde had died before Lusitania's design could really get off the ground, but his wife, Lady Inverclyde, was there that day to launch the ship. The crash, a bottle of champagne detonated against the steel-plated bow. As a band performed Rule Britannia, Lusitania rumbled down the slipway which had been coated in tons of tallow and grease to ease her in. The sounds of cheers, whistles, the hull floated for the very first time, a monument to engineering and human achievement. Task of turning this empty hull into a working, living ship. 6 tugs came alongside Lusitania and towed her a few hundred feet down the Clyde River to her fitting out berth, which received the bulk of the interior fixtures and furnishings by most hotels on the planet, and the immensely powerful machinery that would make her the fastest ship on the ocean. For months, workers toiled, artisans carved, laborers carved intricately detailed panels. Slowly, the bare steel interior was clad in the finest decoration available. Electricians installed miles and miles of wiring, thousands of globes, call buttons, lifts, and motors. The immense boilers and monstrous turbines were all lifted and sealed into the ship like the internal organs of some giant sea creature. Riveted on top were 4 towering smokestacks, each about as tall as most office buildings in New York City. Construction and fitting out completed, the ship would now need to undergo her sea trials. Lusitania was a unique case, though. As Cunard's crown jewel was vital that all went according to plan, any less than the best of these series flowed to reputation. To account for this, the ship's first sea trials were actually performed somewhat in secret. If any problem arose, the ship's owners could make adjustments without attracting negative attention from the public and the press. On July 27, 1906, Lusitania made steam and surged ahead under her own power for the very first time. Joining the ship's crew were representatives from the shipyard, Cunard Line, the Board of Trade, and the British Admiralty. With Cunard's reputation and British national pride were at stake, the deal struck between Cunard and the Admiralty put extra layers of pressure. The liner did not meet her required speed of 24.5 knots as set by the Admiralty. The shipyard would face a £10,000 for every 1/10 of the knot below requirement, up to a total of £100,000, or 15 million in today's money. Slowly, the engines were worked up, the stokers poured the coal into the furnaces, and the turbines rumbled as all 4 propellers churned water to violent wide turmoil. 20 knots, and 21, 22, 23, 24.5 knots. Lusitania had done it. With the nimbleness of a steam yacht, she slipped through the water triumphantly, as if her 44,000-ton weight were a mere trifle. She had exceeded all expectations. Cunard and John Brown breathed a collective sigh of relief. But it wouldn't be all good news. The ship's powerful machinery, the arrangement of her propellers, created much training problem. Interference between the wakes and different sets of propellers was causing a shocking vibration which resonated with the stern and reverberated through the hull. It was passed directly into the passenger accommodations at the stern. The rattling was so fierce that it clearly rendered the affected spaces, mostly second and third class accommodations, to be virtually unusable. Having been spared serious public scrutiny as a result of the trial's relative secrecy, Lusitania found herself at the Canada dry dock, where workers tried to address the problem. fine, towering, second-class dining saloon was ripped out and rebuilt with new bracing, where there had previously been limited space, columns now pierced the decks. The decor was reinstalled, and by the time the rebuild was completed, rattling had diminished somewhat, but it would never be fully resolved. Lusitania had suffered the issue, and the rest of her career. Such was the price of technological innovation. September 7, 1907, the initial trial completed, and after a short test voyage around Ireland, nearly 250,000 people mined diversity as the ship arrived at her home port, Liverpool, for the very first time. Tied up alongside a sheep axle, or landing stage taking up the space, and 3 regularly sized steamers all were fine. Under cover of darkness, the Lusitania cast off the landing stage at 9 p.m. bound for Queenstown, Ireland, and then the open ocean. Water were around 2,200 feet. Paint still smelled fresh, and much of the ornate crockery and cutlery had never yet served to fuel. With a boom, Lusitania's voice echoed around Liverpool's skyline, and thousands of voices cried out in joy as she set off on her maiden voyage. Lusitania was finally going to do the job she'd been designed to do. Lusitania's first commander was Captain James. As he gazed down at his ship's mighty bows crashing through the waves, he must have been filled with an immense sense of pride. The ship's first stop had been Queenstown, Ireland, before she'd made a southwesterly course for the New World. Lusitania steamed lightly through the ocean, and she was proving to the Embryos the speed demon ship had cracked up to be. Approaching New York, the ship had steamed straight past the bewildered White Star Line at Celtic, which had set off 2 days before her from Liverpool. Aboard the ship, passengers on the maiden voyage were immersed in a world of comfort and luxury few before had experienced. One look at Lusitania's sumptuous interiors, you can see how she became an instant favorite, especially among societies. There was no shortage of luxury to be found on board. It was very modern. Electric light throughout, as well as electric lifts, a clever form of air conditioning, a way of thermomix, the newest and finest in Marconi wireless telegraphy. Lusitania was truly a ship for a new age. Towering public rooms and entrances gave the ship a light and eerie feeling. First class was naturally the most popular and celebrated. The lavishly designed accommodations were the work of Scottish interior designer James Miller. He can be best described as palatial. Spectacle of airy plasterwork, high ceilings, and stunning stained glass. The Louis XVI style dining saloon could seat 470 passengers between its 2-story structure. Its top, an enormous dome, was adorned with decorative frescoes and hand-carved walls. The well-appointed lounge and music room was the most popular gathering spot in first class. Its breathtaking mahogany detail, rich green carpet, and massive 20-foot-high barrel-vaulted skylight crowned the room. It was made up of 12 different stained glass panels, each artfully depicting a different month of the year. At either end lay 2 magnificent green marble fireplaces, each 14 feet high. The room was especially attractive to female passengers who were known to pass the time with their noses firmly to the book, or excitedly write letters and postcards home to friends and family. It also functions as a well-stocked library where passengers can check out books for the duration of the voyage. Further up, the first-class smoking room is a space tailored to the men on the board. darker, richer wood paneling, furnishing setting it in sharp contrast to the lighted area feel of the rest of the ship. Like other spaces, the smoking room was topped with a massive barrel-vaulted stained glass ceiling that served to brighten and open the room up. To help passengers get through the ship more comfortably, designers were faced with a problem. The sprawling, magnificent staircases were not even normal on ships. They worked fine if your vessel was only a few decks high. But liners like Lusitania towered 10 stories above the middle line. Electric passenger beds fitted inside glass-encased, wrought iron cages ran up and down to ferry passengers where they needed to go. Another feature that marked Lusitania was a ship of the future. Those looking to get some sun were located further up on the boat deck, the Veranda Cafe. A room open at one end was filled with light-looking furniture and palms with a skylight above. Those enjoyed light refreshments inside was something like sitting on a veranda in the French Riviera. Of course, the luxury of the public rooms carried over into the passengers' accommodations. The first class itself was almost segregated by variety and sizes of the cabins available. Some were way down the ship's hull, but at the top of the list, a small sum of just around $100,000 per crossing in today's money. First-class passengers traveling on Lusitania could be treated to one of the regal suites that came complete with 2 bedrooms, a sitting room, dining room, private bathroom, lavatory, and a pantry. This was Edwardian opulence at its most obscene. Second class on Lusitania was probably where the ship shined most in the marketplace. Truly, to travel in second class aboard this ship was as good as traveling first class on any other liner. And it wasn't just hyperbole or exaggeration. Second class got its own towering dining saloon and palatial lounges. It had been a clever, calculated decision by Cunard. Instead of relying on the shipyard alone, they had broken the protocol by appointing the ship's interior designer, James Miller, to advise on how best to design second class as well. What resulted was a series of spacious, comfortable public spaces decorated in the St. Georgian and Louis XVI styles that could be found in their first-class counterparts. Rich mahogany, airy plastic detailing, it was all on display here, offering a feeling of luxury unlike any other second-class spaces. Fortunately, as we know, these spaces suffered from a fatal vibration. The fix applied by the shipyard saw many stabilizing beams and archways installed to reduce the vibrations, which the builders and designers tastefully disguised with wood paneling and gilt trim. In third class, passengers were treated to luxury akin to second class on other liners. Dining, smoking, and general rooms featured timber paneling. This in an era where most ships housed steerage and sewer, white painted steel compartments with exposed piping. Most impressively, the passengers on board were flushing toilets. For many migrants, this would be their first encounter with such novelty. So too, with electric lights in cabins. It's the kind of thing we take for granted today. The simple presence of those features marked Lusitania as a true wonder of her age. For a few halcyon days in that September crossing, passengers chatted happily, ate heartily, and relaxed as their fine ship sliced through the Atlantic at a breakneck rate. With New York fast approaching, whispers began to spread on board of the possibility of a record-breaking crossing on Lusitania's first try. The speed had steadily increased each day throughout the journey, in hopes of steaming into New York quickly enough to clinch the record for Britain once again in Germany, but it was not to be. The truth was that Watt had no intention of breaking the record that voyage. He had wanted to work his ship's engines up first. Even so, Lusitania missed breaking the German speed record by just 30 minutes. That was to make the North German Lloyd line sweat. As Lusitania steamed past the Statue of Liberty for the first time, she was met with a welcoming committee of 200 vessels waiting to escort her to her berth. A massive flag bearing a message of welcome hung from the citadel. Sirens were sounded, guns were fired into the air, and hundreds of thousands of onlookers crowded the piers. On her march to her berth, she slowly, gradually lowered her blue ensign as acknowledgement of the warm welcome she had been given. Despite the disappointment that the ship had failed to capture the speed record, Cunard officials assured the public that it was simply a matter of time. On her second voyage, Lusitania would prove herself in spades. She became the first liner to ever complete a transatlantic crossing in under 5 days. She claimed the speed record for Great Britain. There was much celebration that evening in Lusitania's first-class dining room. The ship's purser, Joseph Lancaster, offering a jaunty limerick which ran, There was a young man in Westphalia who had charge of much costly regalia. To his sweetheart he said, "My dear, when we're wed, call her girl Lucinda." North German Lloyd, on the other hand, was not too happy about his turn of events, jealously noting in the press the Kaiser Wilhelm the Grosse had logged more miles on their crossings than Lusitania had on her maiden voyage, and that Lusitania had not exceeded the daily speed average of the German vessel. But she had broken the record and made the crossing in an unheard of 4 days, 19 hours, and 52 minutes. Overnight she became a household name, the pride of her own nation. More importantly than that, she was a happy ship. The golden years of Lusitania's career had begun. Lusitania's career was not without its eventful moments. Early on, the electrical fittings, such a wonder though they were, proved extremely troublesome. Holes blown regularly, and circuits shorted. The extreme fineness of the liner's hull also made for some curious behavior. She was known to suddenly and alarmingly drop underfoot at even relatively calm seas, which would send unready passengers or stewards sprawling. Just 2 months after her maiden voyage, in late 1907, his semi-sister ship, Mauretania, joined her on the Liverpool to New York run. Both ships had been built by rival shipping firms to feed and benefit from the competitive spirit. It looked similar from the outside, but inside, the Lusitania was light, airy, and elegant. Mauretania was dark, cozy, and more classic. More importantly, though, the new ship was fast. Mauretania beat Lusitania's speed record. Lusitania tried again in 1909 to wrest the title back from her sister when she had her original three-bladed propellant replaced with new modern four-bladed screws. She won the record back, but Mauretania beat her once again, shortly after, and held the record for another 20 minutes. The real winner of this interfleet rivalry was Cunard, who proudly boasts the world's two largest and fastest liners. The towering red funnels of the ships became a regular and welcome sight in New York City, and in 1910, a massive new series of piers and sheds was built to help service the influx of enormous new liners. New York's iconic Chelsea piers were finished. Cunard ships at last had a terminal that matched their modernity. Then, in 1910, Lusitania was almost lost. A storm had battered the US East Coast, and it had proved fatal. Snowfall caused havoc, and the Atlantic was at its absolute worst. Less than 50 years prior, the new ship would under those conditions be fighting for its very life. The Lusitania cut through the waves with relative ease, although even her famous speed had been curtailed to degree. The ship had been built tough, decades of modern maritime engineering expertise behind her, and she pressed waves cresting over her deck in a superstructure, a thunderous din that was reminiscent of gunfire. Captain William Turner had slowed his ship down to around 16 knots in order to carefully traverse the storm. The liner was handling herself deftly, gracefully cresting wave after wave as they rolled towards her. But on this particular night, the ocean was looking to unleash its true fury. As Lusitania rode over the crest of one wave, her bow dipped down toward the water, just as a veritable wall of water some 70 or 80 feet high rose from the sea in front of her, blocking out the sky. There was no avoiding it. It came crashing down the vessel with unimaginable force. Water violently washed over the decks down the entire length of the ship, burying her bow and superstructure beneath the surface. The crew stationed in the wheelhouse were thrown against bulkheads, and the ship's wheel was actually ripped from the telemotor and hurled across the room, along with the quartermasters who were still holding on to it. Above their heads, on the compass platform above the bridge, at the very top of the superstructure, the seaman was alarmed to find the enormous ship beneath his feet simply disappear into the ocean as white water swirled around his nose. Lusitania wasn't done though. She zoomed up out of the water with force, and she regained her trim. She had survived the rush, but an extremely rare roadway. It hadn't been pretty. Lifeboats were smashed against the deck, or torn off entirely, and front of the bridge and crushed by the force of the water, crumbling it back several inches. Bridge windows, nearly an inch thick, were all smashed. Davits were twisted like tin foil, doors were broken, bulkheads in the steward's quarters were bent. It took 15 minutes for the lights on board to be restored, and another 40 minutes before the ship could once again get underway. Miraculously, Lusitania survived this violent crumbling, was able to carefully navigate her way toward New York, badly bruised, but ultimately still in good health. Her arrival, bridge windows smashed and boarded up, front page on New York's newspapers. The celebrity liner seemed to have cheated death. But sadly, time will soon show that she had been delayed. Life for Lusitania and her sister ship carried on with a regular happy routine. Then, in 1911, they came with the long-anticipated answer from Cunard's old rivals. Olympia was put into service by the White Star Line that summer for her inaugural season. She dwarfed even the Lusitania. Cunard's sisters could no longer boast to be the largest pair of liners at sea because Olympic was going to get a sister ship soon as well. Lusitania was just departing when Olympic first docked in New York in 1911. An act of unusual bad faith, the commander didn't recognize Olympic. Lusitania's whistles weren't sounded, nor were her flags lowered in salute. She simply left in jealous silence. The following years would prove more likely than Cunard carried out. In early 1912, the schedule was changed for Lusitania and her sister. They would begin departing New York hours earlier than at 1 a.m. Mauritania sailing on Mondays and Lusitania on Wednesdays. It would give passengers bound for Ireland plenty of time to disembark at Fishguard in Wales when they could hover their home, and Lusitania could land their passengers at a reasonable hour in Liverpool. This was at the behest of the Irish Parliament, where Cunard had halted stocks in Ireland during return truce. Eastbound, she still wouldn't call it Ireland, but at least this was a good compromise. Leaving the 1 a.m. lineup seemed like a strange choice, but it proved surprisingly popular. The New York Times happily reported sincerity in getting passengers time enough to attend the theatre beforehand, stepped forward about 11 p.m. still dressed in their theatre clothes. From then, until 1914, the 1 a.m. departure became Lusitania's routine. Then, in April of 1912, there came a monumental shock. Olympics anticipated sister ship, Titanic, was introduced and lost on her maiden voyage. It was a huge blow to the transatlantic passenger trade as a whole. The scandal that the Titanic should ever be allowed to go to sea with not nearly enough lifeboats for all on board. And the truth was that virtually all large passenger ships did the same. Lusitania was loaded with a small flotilla of lifeboats and collapsibles that would eventually provide space for 2,600 people. Then, in 1913, the ship began to experience problems with her haunted turbines that resulted in her being pulled from service during the end. By then, Lusitania wasn't the largest ship, nor the fastest ship in the world, but it was arguably the most lovely. Her interiors still appealed. Wealthy and well-travelled, they all flocked to her. She, Mauritania, did so well. The third ship, Aquitania, was laid down for production in 1940. All seemed to be going so well. Then, almost overnight, everything changed. The year Aquitania entered service, the tensions that had long been building between Britain, France, and Germany began to heighten. The boiling point was at last reached. On Sunday, August 2nd, 1914, Lusitania departed New York bound for Liverpool on her usual return home. This would prove to be anything but the usual voyage. She left under a pall of uncertainty. The Austrian Archduke had been assassinated the week prior. Germany seemed poised to invade France at any moment in support of its allies. Diplomats frantically negotiated. Newspapers and telegraphs ran with the latest news. Lusitania would need to make her usual scheduled crossing regardless of the outcome. 2 days before the voyage, alarming news finally came through on the ship's wireless set. Yet, it happened. Britain had declared war on Germany. Lusitania was now a trophy to the army. The passengers were to find their ship being transported. The gorgeous Cunard red funnels had been painted over in a dark grey. So too her brilliant white superstructure. Cunard, as close admiralty ties, had suspected that war was likely to break out on this voyage. They loaded her with stocks of grey paint just in case. vessel was disguised so that she blended into the Atlantic and make good her escape. Grayed out Lusitania arrived in Liverpool a few days later, a bizarre sight given how drab she looked. As it would happen, a few cans of grey paint were not the only preparations Cunard and the Admiralty had made for Lusitania in wartime. The ship, beneath the passengers' feet, had a series of secret features which might have shocked them had they known. Admiralty involvement in Lusitania's design had been heavy from the start. They held hull lock tests that they tank, and then manifested in other forms as well. Of course, the ship was designed to be very fast thanks to her turbines and her hull shape. That wasn't all. Everything below the waterline had to be designed for warfare mode. The Admiralty's grand plan was actually to convert ships like Lusitania and Mauretania into armed merchant cruisers, warships with guns designed to engage other cruisers or enemy merchant ships. Lusitania had been designed to actually engage enemy vessels in combat from the very beginning. The most obvious evidence of this can be found on her original deck plans. Obvious locations of 6-inch guns were marked out around the decks, and the mounting points of those guns were actually installed. Beyond that, though, is the ship's hull itself. Every consideration had been given to what might happen if Lusitania found herself in a gunfight with another ship. Her mechanical heart had to be protected at all costs. The Admiralty had stipulated that transverse coal bunkers had to run the length of the hull and provide a shield to the crucial points. Meanwhile, every major piece of machinery was to be housed well below the waterline where it might be protected from small caliber shell fire. The balanced rudder was designed to Navy standard. The impact of the shape of Lusitania's stern resembled that of a cruising battleship. Crucially, the steering engine, its emergency steering platform, including the ship's helm, compass bit, was also located partly below the waterline. Many other ships, the steering engines were often mounted much higher up. Lusitania's bridge was shot away. The ship could be steered and operated almost entirely from this special compartment, protected from enemy shells. This would be unlike any war the British Admiralty had ever fought, because they were facing, for the first time ever, a new and deadly foe. Germany had invested heavily in submarine technology. Their fleets of U-boats, well commanded, crewed, and deadly efficient. At first, Britain seemed rather unconcerned by these newfangled machines, but this would soon change. On September 22nd, 1914, the German U-9 torpedoed and sank 3 British warships one morning at the cost of hundreds of lives. This forced the British to recognise the U-boat as the existential threat that it truly was. If Germany could sink enough ships, Britain would starve. The outbreak of the Great War had unleashed hell upon Europe. Almost overnight, the passenger trade across the Atlantic ceased. The great liners of the world were mothballed while components wait to see what would happen next. And, one by one, all agreements with the Admiralty began to be enacted. Ships were called up for service. And somewhat ironically, though Lusitania and Mauretania had been designed to be conflict-fine, the immensely coal-hungry power plant that kept the Admiralty services after merchant crew had just consumed far too much coal, almost 900 tons of the stuff every day. The delay in calling the ships up for service was gratuitous, as in practice, liners were terrible armed merchant cruisers. They were damaged and sunk in alarming numbers. Cunard and Carmania accidentally stumbled across the German liner, and Falcon, in disguise, all ships on the ocean as the Carmania. Even though she was just fighting another ocean liner, Carmania was badly damaged in the hull and almost sunk. The Admiralty had other plans for this. Instead of going into service as a warship, it was vital that a sea link between Great Britain and America could still be maintained. Important diplomats and figures could get across the Atlantic in less than a week aboard the Cunard ship. Speed was, after all, the most valuable asset. Crippling coal shortages, they had to be concessions. The average speed was reduced from 26 knots to around 21, which was still an impressively quick enough to outrun the U-boat. At the time, no vessel made more than 14 knots had ever been successfully sunk by a submarine. On the morning of February 4th, 1915, another alarming message arrived aboard Lusitania while she was mid-ocean. Germany had enacted a policy of unrestricted submarine. And Germany had declared a war zone on the coast of Britain and Ireland. otherwise was considered a justified target. Lusitania's bridge was Captain Daniel Dow, a Cunard veteran for 4 decades. He took Germany's threats very seriously. Night before the ship arrived at Liverpool, Dow stayed on the bridge throughout the night, keeping a close watch for surface submarines and constant plan to hopefully keep his ship and their passengers safe from attack. He reasoned that as long as a torpedo did not cause an explosion in the boilers, Lusitania should live for about an hour after being hit. This time frame in mind, he drew up a detailed plan to ensure all passengers would be safely carried off the ship in lifeboats before she could help. Dow also made the decision to fly the American flag. The flag neutrality on Lusitania's masthead during the final day of the move would prove very controversial, carried serious implications for the conventions of naval. Dow's strategy was to pass Lusitania off as an American ship probably would not have been very effective since Lusitania, the most recognizable vessels afloat, and America had no 4 funnel lines of their own. Regardless, when the ship docked, the full landing stage erupted with reporters eager to know the reason behind the usage of this kind of false flag. Captain Dow assured the press that there was no subterfuge intended, merely signaling the presence of neutral American passengers crossing on the vessel. An American journalist reporting on the whole affair, though, wrote that Britannia not only ruled the waves, but also waiting for the winds. After the false flag, Liverpool now completed one last crossing on Lusitania before stepping down as the ship's master. It was no longer aimed to justify the stress of operating a ship that had been marked as a justified target of war in an enemy war zone or likely transport contraband across the Atlantic. Dow had spent 5 wartime voyages commanding Lusitania. On each one, he was known to scarcely leave the bridge, hardly eating, sleeping, keeping constant watch of submarines. Eventually, he developed stomach ulcers thanks to the stress and the lack of proper nourishment. Cunard approved his request of a sick leave. Command of Lusitania was handed back over to Captain William Turner. Meanwhile, Captain Dow's actions had caused a ripple effect that found its way to a very confused Germany. The Germans, of course, had not taken kindly to Britain's clever loophole. Members of the press insisted that British ship flying the flag of a neutral country should be in practice left no way for German U-boats concerned between neutral and non-neutral ships. On the warfront, the Imperial German Navy gradually continued up in the ante over the months that followed in response to what they saw as Britain's attempt to skirt the invasion. By May of 1915, the gloves were off. Germany now had its sights directly on British passenger vessels. They were very clear about their intentions. Previously, the submarine would engage an merchant ship, first surfacing, forcing it to stop, surrender, and evacuate before then sinking it in an orderly fashion. U-boat crews had been horrified when their prey began to fight back, sometimes with guns and even with attempts at ramming. Lusitania's false flag may have been one of the final straws. Now German U-boats could attack unseen at any time from below the surface. The German ambassador to America, Johann Heinrich von Bernstorff, personally decided that his own nation's submarine campaign was, in his opinion, probably illegal, and actually doing damage to Germany's reputation and relations with the USA. He didn't think Lusitania could be targeted, to do so would be an obvious diplomatic mistake, enormous proportions. Even so, he decided to act. A warning was drafted and sent from the German embassy in Washington to the major newspapers in New York. And so it was, May 1st, 1915, Lusitania's boilers simmered away quietly, the steam was gradually got up and impending departure. The New York Times ran that warning on page 19, sandwiched in between the notices from the anchor line and the news of the bridge. Saturday morning, Lusitania lies alongside the Chelsea piers, hold her coal aboard and final cargoes being loaded. A steady stream of passengers crowd the gangways and sheds, passing inspection and customs. Before their eyes, the sheer hull of Lusitania rose up like the face of a huge still cliff. She must have seemed so vast and so safe. The German embassy's warning had not gone totally unnoticed. actually been a few cancellations for nervous passengers backed out. Those hundreds and hundreds of water Lusitania for the first 1915 had either missed the warning entirely or simply assumed that no civilized country would ever attack an unarmed merchant vessel carrying passengers, especially not Lusitania. The ship was bringing new speeds caught by most to make her virtually impervious to attack by the enemy. Reporters flooded the dock that morning against the flurry of activity. Newspaper reports, this voyage in particular had drawn deep public interest and concern. Reporters even managed to corner Captain Turner, asking him his thoughts on the situation. He replied, "Do you think all of these people would be booking passage on board the Lusitania if they thought she could be caught by a German submarine? It's the best joke I've heard in many days, this talk of torpedo." He burst into a hearty laugh and added, "Germany can concentrate their entire fleet of submarines on the track, and we will lose." To Turner, the Lusitania was the ship used to cheating death. She had taken the Atlantic head-on. One, she had sped through the Atlantic, dodging U-boats for months. This ship was most suited to this important job, and he wouldn't have any suggestions to the contrary. News cameramen weren't so sure. One set up even on top of the Chelsea piers and began to roll his camera as the Lusitania was backed out slowly past. Down on the docks, photographers snapped away from the newspapers, jokingly announced, all within earshot, "We're going to call this one the Lusitania's last voyage." It was to be the liner's 202nd transatlantic trip. Tragically, the bad photographer's joke was going to prove prophetic. Kinsale Lighthouse looks out over the Celtic Sea from its perch above windswept green hills and ragged cliffs. It's a place of particular beauty and danger. In the old days, ships were driven onto the rocks in storms. That May 1915 was another danger present, lurking just below the water's surface. Standing at the lee of the great black and white tower, a man peers out in the distance and sees what he makes out to be a ship. Not unfamiliar sight, I should say. Great Cunards make their first landfall after days spent on the Atlantic. Lusitania, the funnel's dark, is just hours away from the crew. It's safe. The crew and passengers can see Kinsale and the Irish coast. This is as close as Lusitania will ever get to their home again. This is a G6 torpedo. It's 50 centimeters, 19.7 inches in diameter, and longer than a truck. Its wet heater engine uses compressed air mixed with decahydronaphylline to drive the propeller giving it a top speed of 35 knots, 4 miles, or 65 kilometers per hour through the water. Its forward end, 353-pound, 160-kilogram TNT X9 explosive charge. This punched a hole through solid concrete. It was made in Germany. This G6 torpedo had just been fired at a target. It roars through the water. Progress watched a nearby periscope. Closer, closer. The crew of the submarine that has just fired hold their breath. The clock would watch seconds tick by. Then, impact. 160 kilograms of hexanide detonates against the hull of a mighty ship. This is not solid concrete, but steel plating, not a condition. The result is devastating. The heaving wall that allows tons of water to surge in. With nearly 2,000 people on board, the timer has just been started because their ship doesn't even have 20 minutes to leave. The crew of the German submarine watch all of their handiwork. What plays out before their eyes will haunt them. The ship's bow plates picked out in gold letters as the name Lusitania. It glistens brightly, perversely, in the sunshine. In their time, the ship was a celebrity, a household name, the pride of her owners and her nation. She was built in peace, but now she is to become a casualty of war. As that gleaming gold nameplate disappears beneath the waves, the shouts and screams of her passengers fill the air. There can be no doubt the world is entered into Europe, unrestricted, total war. Things will never be the same. Line's finest ships. She is a household name. This is not one of Lusitania's famed peacetime voyages. The ship is sailing into the water. Her ship with Cunard red funnels have been painted over with a thick layer of dark paint. On Saturday, May 1st, 1915, the ship that left New York bound for Liverpool. To get there, she would need to steam straight through the waters of the German government that had just declared to be its own an unrestricted submarine. Any British ship or there would be sunk without warning. Lusitania, the peace office, the speed, is the second fastest ship in the world. Because of this, her owners, Cunard, had agreed to keep her running a regular passenger service across the Atlantic, providing vital sealing between Britain and the then neutral United States of America. That Saturday, May 1915, Lusitania had set out on this morning full of mining passengers. Germany would offer no border to any British flag ships. Some cancelled their plans. Lusitania's rough captain, William Turner, had laughed the warnings off. Why, it's the best joke I've heard in any day. Formations of waters. Germany concentrating on a entire fleet of submarines on our track, and we would lose them. Soon, too soon, it would be proved wrong. Lusitania departed New York 2 hours later than expected. She got to the cruising point. Leaving the open Atlantic, her passengers began to settle to their home in eastern communities. Aboard the ship were around 1,960 people, low to maximum capacity, and impressively well for a wartime voyage. Even though it was wartime, her passenger list still featured a few luminaries and celebrities. Chief among these was Alfred Vanderbilt, bound for Britain, his valet on business. The Vanderbilt family established a railroad empire. Alfred, by age 37, approved and adept businessman and real estate tycoon. He apparently received a telegram from home which read, having definite authority that the Lusitania is to be torpedoed, would better cancel passage immediately. He gave it no serious heed and boarded anyways, making the trip being made dozens of times. Then it was held at Hubbard with his wife, Alice. Hubbard was a renowned writer and the eccentric founder of the Boycott Arts and Crafts Society based in New York. Speaking to reporters after boarding was Tanya and Alice, Hubbard had said, speaking from a strictly personal point of view, I would not mind if they did see the ship. Might be a good thing for me. I'd be a regular hero and go right to the bottom. Then, in some seriousness, he added, I shall make no effort to get into the lifeboats unless there's some spare. Also in first class travelled Mr. Isaac Lehman, New York broker, now hero of the lucrative wartime contracts there. He travelled everywhere with small Volvo, and his work would be no exception. And there was Charles Froman, manager and Vietnam manager, Broadway producer. He worked his way up to the very bottom to become one of the big players in entertainment on both sides of the Atlantic. Despite the bombastic industry he was in, Froman was reserved a private person. He travelled from London to oversee a production which was so far the box office, many friends were deeply concerned. One sent a telegram which read, I'll never forgive you if you get blown up by a submarine. Deadly spirits or his window. One friend said, Al, right to just address the landing air of the German submarine U-4. Another friend saw him off with the keys elucidating the pardon. Aren't you afraid of birds? He'd asked. Froman smiled. No, he said, I'm only afraid of the IOUs. Froman was joined by Benji actress Rita Jolivet, who acted in one of his shows. There are nephew familiar faces on the local actors, singers, playwrights, well-rubbed elbows, and would be firm intimidates. Froman and the others relaxed in the comfortable surround of the lounge and smoking rooms of the first class, and given on the back the first class was severely just over half capacity, with plenty of space to do so. With their feet, 601 second-class passengers wandered through the ship in war and luxury. Davis Dalton, 12, was one of dozens of children on board. She was travelling with two nurses to start school in Britain, and the excitement while travelling on the world's most famous ships was tempted by her terrible seasickness as the liner swayed and pitched gently around. Chrissy Aiken was another young passenger in second class, just 16 years old. She was aboard with her family, her father, James, older brother Jarvie, and his young 2-year-old son. The Aikens were returning to their native Scotland after Jarvie's wife Grace had died unexpectedly the year before. Chrissy's own mother passed away in 1908, and the bereaved family decided to return home. They originally were passengers on the Maronia. Last minute, the ship had been requisitioned by the Admiralty. They were transferred to the much larger Lusitania instead. Then there was Ian Holden, professor and lecturer. He'd done a tour of the US trying to get a manuscript published and returning to his home in Scotland. On an expedition to Iceland in 1900, he'd fallen in love with the Scottish Isle he encountered along the way. He bought it first chance he got, and the locals treated him like a dignitary. He and his wife eventually moved to London, Holden lecturing at colleges on classical history, poetry, and social literature. The outbreak of war, he and his wife moved back to their Scottish life. Then he had written his book, Things to Keep Secret. His trip in America was a success. The manuscript slated for publishing sometime later the year. After a few months abroad, the 43-year-old was ready to come home to his wife and beloved Island world. In third class, the Lusitania's steerage held only 370 passengers, despite the fact she was designed to carry more than 1,100. Aside from state war, the sort of truth is that the majority of people traveling aboard the Lusitania and sprang from most of the business people in the middle class. The migrant trade was immensely popular in the years leading up to the war, and the crossings going back the other way, back to Britain and Europe, were always spotted. These 370 men, women, and children were mostly originally from Britain, Ireland, or Europe, who were heading back home and wanted to stay with their families while the war broke out, or to convince loved ones to come back with them to the safety of America. Lusitania's small propeller was churning through the ocean, but she wasn't moving as fast as she normally would on a train from Boston. It was back to apparent passengers aboard, the name Williams, to her captain, William Turner. Turner had been at sea since the tender age of 8, starting as a cabin boy on a sailing barge and moving his way from ship to ship, coasting to coast, always known as a Monday party vessel design. Once he joined the Cunard Line in 1878, it took him 25 full years of dedicated service to finally see himself in command of a liner. Turner went on to skipper some of the most well-known Cunard liners like Carpathia, Mauritania, and the newer Aquitania. also knew Lusitania well. In command, the night ship copped a devastating rogue wave over the coast. His gruff old sultan command known for his anti-social demeanor. Avoiding mutual social duty, the captain were expected to perform. According to his passengers once, his loaded bloody monkeys who were constantly chattering. One particular crossing from Mauritania, a female passenger asked her if she could remain on the bridge and keep the ship steaming down nervously outside the waters. Then replied that it wasn't planned. The passenger quite impressed by asking, "Would the lady have this?" Turner simply replied flatly, "Madam, do you think that would be a lady?" He rarely joined the passengers at dinner and found the idea of small talk England deeply upset. The humorous that the passengers only seemed to enjoy his mystique made him very popular. It helped that he was a fine captain too, one of Cunard's most experienced men. Lusitania on wartime transatlantic service, even the pleasantries, his staff captain, focus on the conduct of the ship under his command. The role of staff captain was a relatively new role, being reduced in the wake of the Titanic tragedy. Sport ship's captains might have too much on their plate to be running a vessel and associated with passengers. James John Anderson, lawyer, second in command of the ship, and Turner's right-hand man. Been Cunard for nearly 2 decades, but even held his own command of the company. He served in such a senior role aboard as famous a vessel as Lusitania was not. While Turner and 6 other deck officers focused on navigation of the ship's progress, Anderson tended to be meetings with passengers and oversaw some more administration-heavy aspects of the ship's operation. It was not an easy job. Under he and Turner's watchful eye, around 690 men went tasked with keeping the ship calm along. Down at the engine room, Chief Engineer Archibald Bryce and his men kept the turbines roaring at the ship's speed a steady constant. The boiler room, 160 men, including Klein and James Green and Dave Evans, toiled to feed the furnaces and tons of coals around the clock. Hurrying through labyrinthine corridors, with 100 stewards and stewardesses like John Valentine and Marion A. Bird tended to passengers at every meeting. The enormous kitchen, galley with dozens of cooks like Henry Beckett and George Wynn worked to be hundreds of pounds. Lusitania was running like a well-oiled machine, a floating town. She may have had her happy peacetime funnel colours darkened, but she was still providing a service as good as a passenger might expect from any crossing during a day. Lounges sounded happy chatter and laughter, shuffleboard blades rattled across the deck beams. Here was a happy reprieve from the terrible war news coming out of the self-contained world where all that seemed to exist, the rushing sea air, the rolling waves, the gentle pitching of the mighty ship. For the roughly 1,260 passengers on board likely to take on a simple, leisurely routine largely centered around dining times. On the surface, there seemed to be very little out of the ordinary. For those familiar with Lusitania from the transatlantic crossing, there were signs that not all was as it seemed. They'd become accustomed to her flying across the ocean at cracking speed. This time they were surprised instead to find the ship ambling along at far below her top speed. This wouldn't do. Lusitania's speed was her best defense. Passengers were to know that the reasons of economy and shortages of the ship's speed had been greatly reduced. In fact, her cabin's boiler rooms had been closed entirely, its boilers sitting cold and unused. The fact was that Lusitania burned through a mental amount of coal that Cunard Line and British Admiral didn't have to spare. Instead, she would do this voyage far below her top speed. The board liners had become tradition of the run. The oil covered over a 24-hour period would be posted for passengers to see every morning. It became a source of betting on board. The details of the ship's run were posted the morning of the second day out of New York. Clear that it would take a little bit longer than the passengers had hoped to see their way safely through the water. Many still held out hope that the crew was holding off on pushing Lusitania's engines until the ship was closer to the water itself. And each time the ship's run was posted, Lusitania could then seem to break an average of 21 knots. This was still a good clip. In fact, with the top speed of most British liners serving as troop ships and auxiliary cruisers at the time, it still began to create an air of anxiety and horror. Isaac Lehman, the old broker, caught up to the ship's first officer and challenged him on Lusitania's slow progress. He was told, erroneously, that it was thanks to crew shortages. A degree of unease invaded the etage. At night, passengers slept fully clothed with lifeboats in arm's reach. Some slept in public rooms high up in the ship for fear of being caught far below the state rates on trail. Instead, one man snuck into a lifeboat. His officers reassured passengers as best they could that all was well. And hundreds of overactive imaginations saw a periscope behind every wave, torpedo strike at every moment. Their worry was not baseless. The Atlantic Ocean was not a friendly place. Hundreds of miles away, the coast of Ireland, a submarine boat at their head slipped through the ocean waves like some kind of giant brain dagger. The day Lusitania was part of New York, the submarine had been patrolling the coast of Ireland. Now, its commander, Walter Schwieger, was beginning to feel like it. For his command, U-20 were responsible for sinking 6 British vessels since the beginning of its patrol in January. The pace had quickly picked up since the declaration of the war zone encircling the British Islands. They were in an ideal position to control the busy waterways leading to crucial ports like Liverpool. On the 5th, 4 days after Lusitania had left, U-20 caught and sank a small fishing boat on the coast of Ireland. The next day, a 2,000-ton steamship. Schwieger, a U-boat man since 1911, had begun to form a reputation as something of a renegade. Earlier that same patrol, Schwieger had attacked a hospital ship, HMHS Asturias. The torpedo hit, but it failed to detonate. The German embassy announced the attack had been a mistake, and that Schwieger had disengaged afterward. It was clear that he had no qualms with attacking British ships, military, or civil. He knew the waters of Ireland would bring many targets his way. Probably also knew that Lusitania was to be expected off the stretch of coast that she maintained her regular schedule. On the conning tower, U-20's men peered at the horizon with their binoculars, looking for the telltale sign of smoke. All they had to do was wait. Before Lusitania, the lifeboat drill was held largely for benefit of the crew. Passengers were not impressed. George Kessler, a wine merchant traveling first class, approached Captain Turner himself and suggested passengers should also receive crew and tickets with designated lifeboat numbers. Turner brushed him off, and that was the end of it. The demonstration did very little for well-known travelers, whose trepidation only grew as the ship inched closer and closer to the water. Passengers weren't the only ones concerned by the Lusitania's precarious position. During the voyage, Alfred Booth, the chairman of the Cunard Line, appealed to the British admirals themselves to ensure all precautions were in place to ensure the safe passage of the liner. Multiple warnings had been sent by telegram to all inbound ships crossing through the war zone, 2 in particular meant the Lusitania specifically. The messages were very clear. Increased submarine activity had been detected in the waters of Ireland, and any inbound ships were urged to take extra precautions. Captains were advised, but not ordered, to maintain full speed and the mid-channel course, avoiding coastlines that, where possible, making a zigzag course that would continue submarine and trying to get a bearing in their time. Turner knew these waters and his ship very well, and he had ultimate authority on the water. He kept that advice in mind, trusting his own instinct. Soon, his ship would be on Ireland, and the familiar coastline would be in sight. It would guide him and his ship home. Still, he decided to take some precautions. Early in the afternoon of the 6th, the final day before Lusitania made landfall, he ordered 22 of the ship's boats uncovered and swung out, ready for launching at a moment's notice. Lusitania headed into her final night, the ship was alive with activity. In first class, parties were held by more illustrious passengers than their captains, and in the lounge, a seamen's charity concerts held, a tradition in the Cunard and other lines for the final night of the ship's voyage. Passengers mustered the courage to get on stage and perform, singing, juggling, joking. It was all on display, laughter from the air despite the general feeling of unease. First class passenger and actress Rita Jolivet declined to perform, with other show business now. In addition, there was a stark reminder of the situation. Turner got up on stage to relay the latest news. On entering the war zone tomorrow, he said, "I shall be securely in the care of the horrible navy." Of course, there was no need for alarm. Reminding passengers not to light cigarettes on deck, and then let the show go on. Turner, built like a barrel, stood up, but in an authoritative way, gave an air of absolute certainty. Meetings swung the boats out so passengers knew take the threat seriously. All of this with many lines of news. Just shortly after, the message came through on the telegraph that read, "To all British ships, take the full pilot and car and avoid headland. Pass harbours at full speed. Steer in-channel course. Submarines off faster." As the hours grew later, Captain Turner ordered a blackout. All outboard lights on the ship were extinguished, all portholes and skylights were covered. Lusitania would steam through the night, covered with blackness. The captain stayed up until daybreak to peer into the evening horizon. This would be Lusitania's final night. Early the next morning, Lusitania was approaching Ireland, about 100 miles west-southwest of the coast, and she had to slow down to yield. Turner was being especially cautious to navigate Lusitania for the big berg. The speed had been at maximum allowed, 21 knots, now it had fallen off significantly. Despite having officially crossed over into the patch of sea designated by Germany as an unrestricted war zone, Turner didn't want to run the risk of colliding with another vessel in the Gulf. Lusitania lumbered along at 18, and then just 15 knots, before moving out to the west. Margaret Mackworth, first-class passenger and notable son of Jed, was travelling with her father, and the two were at lunch. "Home tomorrow," she had said. "Are you pleased, father?" "I would be more pleased, my dear," he replied. "I believe that wretched siren hasn't given her whereabouts." He wasn't alone in thinking so. Many passengers were alarmed that Lusitania would advertise her position like this. But Turner was no fool. The ship floated in fog and was essentially invisible to the sun. The hours ticked by, and by 10 a.m. the blanket of fog at last lifted from the field, far off in the distance, the Irish coast, bright, dear to the sun. Land was in sight. For a moment it seemed, maybe, just maybe, they were in the clear. The bridge, Captain Turner had decisions to make. Warnings had been coming in from the British Admiral via wireless every hour on the hour. None. He had Lusitania on a straight course, right towards the Irish coast, rather than remaining far out to sea. The Admiral had advised against this, and recommended that he make some kind of successful course, and presented him with the problem of this. The course he maintained was carefully planned to bring Lusitania at high tide, making it much quicker up the harbour pipeline, waiting and proceeding to dock without stopping. They came in too early to make the ship a sitting down. To make it to the reservoir at high tide at all, the ship would be unable to make the zigzag course, and instead they would make straight for land. Essentially, everything had been warned specifically not to. The latest warning to come in from the Admiral's view gave importance. Submarines 5 miles south of Cape Clear, proceeding west inside the 10 a.m. This was true by Turner's reckoning to Lusitania and somehow skirted the universe without realizing, having already passed Cape Clear and covered with the fog. The horrifying truth is that since the day of Lusitania's departure less than a week prior, some 23 vessels through which the line had now sailed